Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Last Song of Ooo, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right. Lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Close your eyes for a moment. Try to imagine Ooo before there were kingdoms, before heroes, before even the soft green rise of grass, back when the sky had no name and the seas had not yet learned their rhythms. There was no candy kingdom, no flame princess, no ice king on his lonely throne. There was only stillness, of the kind of stillness that hums softly behind silence. And in that stillness came the first sound. It wasn't a song, not yet. It was something deeper, almost like the heartbeat of the world itself. The gentle vibration that told the void, I am here. Some say it began with the music hole, that strange, sentient cavern buried beneath the earth. Who remembers every song ever sung? Others believe it was born from the meeting of the elements, fire striking ice, candy swirling into slime, creating the first shimmer of resonance that would one day grow into melody. Whatever its origin, that sound was the seed of all life in Ooo. It spread outward like a slow wave, brushing over stones, stirring the dust, waking unseen things from slumber. Mountains lifted their heads to listen. Rivers learned to murmur. The wind began to find its own rhythm, weaving between newborn trees. And somewhere within that first breath of creation, the universe found its tone, a note both infinitely old and impossibly young. When we think of Ooo, we often think of color-bright kingdoms and fantastical shapes, heroes and monsters and magic. But beneath all of it lies something more ancient: vibration. Every creature, every spell, every feeling carries its own frequency, its own quiet hum that links it back to the beginning. The candy people giggle in major chords, bright and bouncing. The fire wolves growl in minor tones, deep and smoldering. Even the nightosphere, for all its chaos, hums in a low and steady rhythm, the pulse of entropy itself. It's said that if you could stand in the heart of the world and listen carefully enough, you'd hear it the harmony of all things, a soft, endless music, layered and interwoven, shaping reality note by note. The ancient scholars of Ooo called it the Song of Becoming, not because it was finished, but because it was always unfolding, always transforming into something new. Somewhere in the distant past, before even the Great Mushroom War, the world that would become Ooo was a quiet, broken planet. Human machines lay silent, cities hollowed out and forgotten. Yet beneath the ruins, the hum never stopped. It waited patiently, gathering new voices as life returned. Moss creeping up concrete, insects whispering in the dark, rain pattering on fractured glass, each sound adding its own texture to the endless symphony. As the elements awoke, they too added their verses. Flame burned in staccato bursts, its rhythm fierce and untamed. Slime bubbled softly, weaving gentle bass lines beneath it all. Candy shimmered with bright, twinkling notes, childlike, hopeful. And ice, ever still, held the pauses between sounds, the silence that gave meaning to the melody. Together they formed the first harmony of Ooo, wild and imperfect, yet beautifully alive. Imagine standing in that world. There's no language yet, no concept of time, only tone and vibration. When the air moves, it sings. When you touch the ground, you can feel its faint trembling beneath your fingertips, as if the planet itself is breathing. You might not know what it's saying, but you can feel it, that subtle pull of connection, that sense of being part of something vast and ancient. That's what music was before instruments and voices, a natural bridge between all things that exist. In those earliest moments, The music hole was said to awaken deep beneath the crust. No one knows who or what created it. Perhaps it was a remnant of the universe's own sound, the echo left behind when reality was still new. The music hole began to listen. It listened to the tremors of mountains growing, to the sighs of wind carving stone. It listened to the elements' discord and found beauty in their dissonance. It became the memory of sound itself, the keeper of every vibration that had ever lived. Over time, the song of becoming shaped not just the world, but the very flow of magic. Enchantments, spells, even emotions followed patterns, invisible chords, connecting heart to heart. That's why magic in Ooo often feels like music. It responds to feeling, to rhythm, to intent. The universe doesn't just obey rules. It harmonizes with will. If you listen closely to Finn's laughter echoing across the grasslands, or to Jake's sleepy humming under the stars, you can still sense that original vibration. It's faint, but it's there, the echo of the world's first melody, pulsing softly through every living thing. Even when characters in Ooo sing, they're not just performing, they're aligning themselves with that cosmic hum, whether they know it or not. When the Mushroom War came, and much of the old world fell silent, the song didn't vanish. It simply changed key. Where once it sang in major tones of creation, it now hummed with the low, sorrowful notes of loss. But even then it kept going. The radiation, the decay, the strange rebirth of magic, all of it formed new harmonies. Life in Ooo was rewritten through this sound, every mutation and miracle guided by the rhythm of what had come before. And so from the ashes of the old, Oo's music grew stranger and more beautiful. The land became a great instrument, forests strummed by wind, mountains drumming by rain, the sea breathing in and out like a living chord. Every sound, even the quietest, was a continuation of that first note. That's the secret of Ooo. It was never just a world. It was a song that learned how to dream. And like all songs, it would one day reach its end. But not yet. For now, the melody still lingers, slow, gentle, and full of stories waiting to be remembered. Because before there was adventure, before love or sorrow or time itself, there was only that note, the first sound humming softly in the darkness, patient and eternal. The promise that even in silence, something still sings. If you imagine floating through that darkness where the first note still drifts like mist, you might begin to sense how it shaped everything that followed. The world of Ooo was not sculpted with hands or forged in heat. It was sung into being. Each layer of reality emerged as harmony from the last, a kind of living resonance that shimmered softly through the matter. The very atoms of existence vibrated in quiet sympathy with that ancient tune. In that early age, there were no listeners yet, no audience, no applause. The sound simply was eternal and unobserved. But even sound longs to be heard. It was as if the universe, in its solitude, began to hum to itself out of loneliness. That hum gave rise to form the mountains, the oceans, the skies, all dancing gently to an inaudible rhythm. It's said that the stars above Ooo still remember this. When you look at them, they don't shine so much as they sing in light, radiating the same vibration that birthed them. There are whispers, tucked deep in the scrolls of magical history, that the elementals themselves were the first voices of this music made flesh. They were not merely beings of power, they were chords. Flame, with its erratic crackle and surge, carried the rhythm of existence, the steady beat of heartbeat and lava flow. Candy held the melody, bright and sweet, the sound of growth and delight. Slime carried harmony, the slow current that connected all things. And ice, ever still, was the silence that held every note together. Without ice, the song would have spun endlessly, with no space to breathe. And so, from the earliest flickers of sound, a kind of cosmic orchestra formed. The elements balanced one another, sometimes clashing, sometimes blending, but always returning to that same universal motif. It was through their tension that Ooo learned movement, a volcano's eruption, the whisper of frost spreading across a lake, the soft trickle of melting snow, all were parts of one grand, unending composition. The ancient spirits called it the harmony of becoming, and they believed that to understand it fully was to touch the edge of divinity. Wizards of old, long before Simon Petrikov or even Evergreen, tried to replicate its power. They built flutes of crystal and harps of lightning, hoping to channel the primordial sound that shaped creation. Some succeeded. For a moment they glimpsed the vibration that ties every soul together, but such understanding was fleeting. For mortal minds, it was like trying to hold wind in a closed hand. And yet, that pursuit never ended. Every bard, every singer, every quiet hum beneath the stars is part of that same ancient instinct, the desire to reconnect with the song that made us. When we sing, we aren't just creating something new. We're remembering something impossibly old. Think of how the music hole listens, not with ears, but with its entire being. Deep in the earth, it hums faintly, a reminder that sound never truly dies. Every echo, no matter how faint, folds back into the soil and the stone, waiting to be heard again. Perhaps that's why some travelers say they can still hear the laughter of ancient heroes carried on the wind, or the faint strum of a forgotten song under the waves. Ooo is alive, because it remembers. When light first touched the world, it did so in rhythm. Dawn was not a sudden explosion, but a gradual crescendo. The first sunrise was music, given color golds and blues unfolding like chords played across the horizon. The early creatures of Ooo didn't speak. They communicated through tone, through resonance, through feeling. A call across the forest wasn't just noise, it was a declaration of being. The roots beneath the ground carried vibrations like messages, linking the wilds into one continuous consciousness. The world sang to itself, and through that music, life found its voice. And as the first civilizations began to stir, their myths always told of this origin, that sound came before light, and song came before language. The people of Oo's early kingdoms believed that their souls were notes in a greater symphony, destined to rise and fall with the music of time. They built temples not for gods, but for echoes, vast chambers designed to let every whisper bounce endlessly, mingling the human voice with the memory of the earth's own. Even after those temples crumbled, the idea lingered, that memory itself is a form of sound, that when you remember someone, you are replaying their frequency in your heart. It's a poetic thought, but one that fits the world of Ooo, a land where memories and dreams and music often blur together until they are one and the same. In that sense, the first note was not just the start of the world. It was the start of connection. Every friend who laughed beside a campfire, and every creature who sang to the stars, every hero who whispered a promise before sleep, they are all echoes of that single vibration, repeating endlessly in new forms. And somewhere beyond the reach of time, that note still drifts, waiting for the day when all songs, all voices will return to it again. The elders of early Ooo believed that when the wind brushed the surface of a pond and ripples formed, the water was not disturbed, it was answering. They said that even the gentlest vibration called forth a reply from the universe. Every movement, every sound, was part of a grand conversation between matter and spirit. You could never sing alone. The world always sang back. When the first true melodies took shape, They were not created by instruments, but by nature itself. The rustle of leaves became percussion. The chirp of insects formed a choir. The low sigh of distant caverns set a deep, resonant drone beneath it all. Travelers who passed through those wild lands spoke of strange harmonies that seemed to follow them, as though the very ground remembered their footsteps and played them back as song. Perhaps that is how the first musicians of Ooo were born, not as composers, but as listeners who learned to hear what was already there. In the quiet spaces between sound, where the hum faded just enough to leave room for thought, life began to dream. It was in dreaming that the concept of rhythm took form. Night and day began their eternal duet, light and shadow learning to take turns like partners in a slow dance. The ocean's tides became a metronome, steady and patient. Rain fell not randomly, but in delicate patterns that lulled the sleeping earth. Even the heartbeat of creatures, when they finally emerged, echoed the same pulse that had always been. Long before any mortal voice dared to sing, the world itself was already composing stories. The first volcanoes roared with primal chords. The clouds drummed softly against mountaintops. Lightning stitched its melody across the sky. And when the first drops of rain met the soil, they whispered the earliest lullabies, songs of cooling, songs of renewal. The land was both singer and audience, crafting its own music in endless reflection. Among the many mysteries whispered through the ages, one of the most enduring is that of the harmonic wells. Ancient scholars claim there were places where the song of becoming could be heard in its purest form, deep fissures in the ground that hummed with a sound not quite earthly. These wells were said to be the breath of Ooo itself, exhaling tones that could heal wounds, calm storms, even mend broken hearts. It was believed that each elemental kept watch over one such place, guarding its resonance as if it were a sacred heart. But not all who sought the harmonic wells did so with peace in mind. Power, after all, has its own music. When ambition entered the world, dissonance followed. There came a time when magic users tried to control the ancient sound, to bind it, twist it, amplify it. They discovered that when harmony was bent too far, it shattered into noise. And that noise had consequences. The tremors of misuse shook mountains, twisted beasts into new forms, and left scars across the land that never fully healed. Yet even then, the song of becoming endured. Like a melody hidden beneath chaos, it waited to be rediscovered. It is curious how the strongest magic in Ooo has always been tied to emotion. When someone sings with pure feeling, joy, sorrow, love, their voice can ripple through reality itself. Perhaps that is why so many stories in this world are carried by music. Marceline's aching chords, Bubblegum's soft hum when she works, even Ice King's lonely jingles echoing through his frozen halls. They are each in their own way speaking the language that shaped the universe. Imagine for a moment the music hole in that era of first discovery. Far beneath the surface, its stone walls glowed faintly with an unseen rhythm. The chamber thrummed like a vast heart, vibrating with every song the world had ever known. The air there would have felt thick, alive, almost sentient. Some say those who entered could hear not just sound but memory, the laughter of forgotten beings, the sigh of long-vanished stars. The music hole didn't simply record songs, it remembered emotions. And what a wonder it must have been to the first creatures who stumbled upon it. To stand in the center of that vast chamber and feel the ground pulse beneath your feet, as though the world itself was breathing with you. Many must have wept, realizing they were not separate from creation, but part of its ongoing chorus. It's easy to imagine one of them humming softly in response, adding their small voice to that immense vibration. That moment, one living being singing back to the universe, may have been the true beginning of music as we know it. From there, the habit of singing spread quietly, like seeds on the wind, not for performance or glory, but for communion. Every lullaby, every chant, every rhythm beaten into the soil was an act of remembrance. They sang to recall the first note, to feel it again in their bones, because deep down, every being in Ooo carries a faint echo of that primordial sound, a resonance that hums softly whenever love, fear, or wonder stirs within them. Over ages, those songs grew more complex, weaving stories into melody, turning vibration to language. But even as Ooo blossomed with art and culture, some knew the truth, that every song is merely a reflection of the first. No matter how new a tune might seem, it is always tracing the same ancient pattern, the one that began in silence, that shaped the stars, that whispered the first dream. And somewhere, deep below the surface, the music hole still hums along, keeping the rhythm steady, holding the memory intact, waiting patiently for the day when all sounds, all hearts, will return to it once more. Some say that time itself was the first true instrument, that its steady, endless march was the percussion behind everything that would ever exist. Each age of Ooo added another measure to the great rhythm of creation. And if you could listen across eons, not with ears but with spirit, you might hear how seamlessly they blend the slow, thunderous pulse of stone, the delicate flicker of flame, the quiet exhale of clouds moving over empty plains. Every moment, no matter how small, carried its own tone. Together, they built a symphony that never once stopped playing. As Ooo began to take shape, the world grew braver with its song. Volcanoes began to roar, not in anger, but in excitement. Rivers learned to hum in harmony with the rain. The auroras that shimmered across the early skies were not just light, but color made sound-long ribbons of melody winding through the upper air. The planet, still young and fragile, was learning to find its balance, just as a musician learns to tune their instrument before the concert begins. The elemental spirits, still vast and undefined, listened to this early music and found themselves in it. They became its living expressions, each embodying a fragment of the greater harmony. Flame took on passion and movement, the drive of rhythm and will. Candy became warmth and sweetness, melody and emotion. Slime found form in connection, and fluidity, the binding harmony between all others. And ice took its place as the keeper of pauses, the slow silence that gives music its depth. In every age thereafter, these elements would drift apart and come together again, mirroring the eternal tension between sound and stillness, chaos and order. As centuries drifted by, the land began to collect echoes of every age. The sands of the desert still whispered with the heat of their creation. The northern glaciers groaned in their sleep, dreaming of the first winter's silence. Even the stones, when struck by wandering feet, seemed to reply in low, patient tones. Those who wandered alone in the wild places sometimes reported feeling surrounded by invisible choirs, faint voices rising from the soil and sky, as though the world was quietly remembering itself. This belief eventually gave birth to the idea of listening magic. Before the great wizards, there were the listeners' beings who didn't conjure with words or gestures, but by attuning themselves to the vibrations of life. They could calm storms by humming softly to the wind, or coax flowers into bloom by matching the tone of their roots. It was gentle magic, unrecorded in most histories, because it was never about power. It was about respect and the act of hearing creation's heartbeat and choosing to move in time with it. In that age, every settlement and wandering tribe had its own lullaby, its own ritual hum. Music was how they kept their memories alive. Without writing, they wove their histories into song, so that even if their bodies faded, their voices would remain in the air. It's possible that long after those people vanished, their melodies drifted upward, becoming the faint, unplaceable tunes that sometimes wander across the plains of Ooo when the wind is just right. And somewhere within that tapestry of sound, the music hole continued its vigil. Its cavernous body resonated with each new vibration that reached it, storing everything, never judging, never forgetting. Over millennia, its depths became layered with meaning. The laughter of the first creatures, the crash of the first storm, the last sigh of forgotten gods, all preserved, all resonating together in a harmony too vast for any mortal ear to comprehend. The music hole was not merely part of Ooo, it was Oo's memory itself. To hear it fully would be to understand the story of the world in a single note. But such understanding comes with a price. Those who listened too deeply were said to vanish, drawn into the resonance itself, becoming one more echo among the many. Perhaps they were not lost at all, perhaps they simply found their way back to the beginning, where the first vibration still hums softly in the dark. That, perhaps, is the truest mystery of the first note. It was never just a sound. It was a promise that everything born from it would one day return to it, that all joy, sorrow, laughter, and silence would fold back into the same vibration from which they came. The world's music has always been a cycle, not a line. The song begins, it grows, it changes, and at last, it fades into quiet once more, only to begin again in another form. So when we think of Oo's history of heroes and monsters and magic and loss, we are really hearing variations of one endless melody. The song of becoming never stopped playing. It only shifted its rhythm as the ages turned. Even now, if you were to wander into the heart of the wilderness and lie down upon the earth with your ear pressed against the soil, you might hear it faint and far away, but still alive, a low hum beneath everything. The first note still ringing after all this time, waiting patiently for the final chord that will one day complete it. And that, sleepyheads, is where tonight's first part leaves us in the twilight before history, when Ooo itself was still dreaming of its voice. The world has found its melody, but its story has only just begun. Soon kingdoms will rise, songs will take shape, and the memory of that first vibration will find new ways to sing. For now, the hum continues, soft, eternal, and full of promise. When the silence of the early world softened into rhythm, the land began to hum with stories waiting to be told. From the heartbeat of creation rose the first community's small, flickering lights, scattered across the vast body of Ooo. They were born into a world still learning its shape, a place where the wind carried not only the scent of forests and fire, but the echoes of something ancient. And so it was only natural that when these early beings wanted to remember, to pray, to celebrate, or to mourn, they turned instinctively toward music. In the beginning, there were no grand orchestras or complex instruments. The first songs were simple, intimate things, a mother's low hum while gathering berries, a wanderer's wordless tune while crossing the cracked fields left by the mushroom war. Every note was a thread tying them back to that first sound beneath the earth, the heartbeat that had called the world awake. These songs became the world's second language, a way to speak directly to its hidden heart. The Candy Kingdom was among the first to make music its identity. In the earliest records of its sugary rise, their songs were bright and buoyant, almost impossibly sweet, carrying a sense of childlike wonder. The Candy People, with their gentle laughter and unshakable optimism, seemed to embody melody itself. Their voices carried through the air like ribbons of sunlight. They sang while building while resting, while dreaming of futures full of shared joy. For them, singing wasn't performance, it was how they stayed alive. Their queen, centuries later, would embody this philosophy in her own way. Princess Bubblegum rarely sang aloud, but her creations often did. Machines in her laboratories emitted faint harmonic tones as they worked, perfectly tuned to one another. Some historians believe this was intentional, that even her science was built around the old idea that everything in Ooo must move in rhythm. Her kingdom's heartbeat was not war or wealth, but song, structured into the sweetness of daily life. In the fiery depths of the Flame Kingdom, music took a different form. Their world was rhythm-pounding, visceral, alive. The flicker of every flame was like a heartbeat in constant percussion. For the Flame people, song was power, a way to channel passion and fury. Their music was not sung, but felt through the body, each drumbeat echoing like a memory of volcanic birth. To hear it from afar was to sense the pulse of creation's rawest element, a reminder that rhythm is both life and destruction in perfect balance. Far to the north, where the winds whispered across endless white, the Ice Kingdom learned another kind of music, the Song of Solitude. In that cold expanse, silence became a melody of its own. The first ice creatures found music not in sound, but in the soft ringing of crystals, the faint tones carried by frost settling over stone. They believed that true harmony came not from adding notes, but from removing them, that the purest song was the one barely heard. For them, quiet was sacred. Every echo mattered. Every pause was divine. The Slime Kingdom, ever fluid and strange, brought harmony to all of it. Their songs were endless loops, constantly shifting but never truly changing. It's said that the people of that realm didn't distinguish between song and speech. To them, communication was always musical, their voices rising and falling like gentle waves. They were connectors by nature, and their music reflected that role. Every other kingdom's melodies could find a home within the Slime Kingdom's rhythm, flowing together in shimmering unison. Through these realms, Ooo became a choir of distinct yet interwoven voices. Each sang their truths into the air, shaping culture through sound. Where the Candy Kingdom's songs spread laughter and unity, the Flame Kingdom's beats forged courage and determination. The Ice Kingdom's stillness inspired reflection, and the Slime Kingdom's fluid harmonies taught empathy and balance. The land thrived because no voice drowned out another together. They kept the grand song alive. But beneath this harmony, something deeper was happening. Music had begun to carry memory. The old world, the one buried under ruins and ash, was not forgotten. It lived on in the rhythms of these new songs. A candy child lullaby might unknowingly echo an old human melody from before the war. A flame bard's pounding rhythm might be the shadow of an ancient march once played on iron drums. Sound had become a vessel for remembrance. And among those who wandered between the kingdoms, no one understood this more than Marceline. Long before she became known as the Vampire Queen, she was a traveler and a keeper of songs. Her music was neither sweet nor sorrowful at first. It was simply honest. As an immortal being, she carried the weight of centuries in her voice, and when she sang, the world seemed to recognize something of itself in her. She moved through the candy lands, the icy wastes, and the flaming halls, collecting pieces of melody like keepsakes. From each place, she took something small, a rhythm, a hum, a feeling, and blended it into her own sound. Her songs became bridges, threads between the hearts of kingdoms that might otherwise have remained apart. She didn't know it, but she was preserving the balance of Ooo simply by remembering. There are legends that when Marceline sang in the ruins of the old world, the air shimmered faintly with light. Some say it was the spirits of forgotten things awakening for a moment to listen. Others believed it was the earth itself responding, humming back its gratitude. Whatever the truth, her music became a living memory of one that grew richer with every century she lived. Music by then had become the bloodstream of the land. It connected cities and deserts, mortals and immortals, laughter and grief. And as the world grew louder and more complex, as machines began to hum and magic wove new layers of sound into existence, Oo's great song continued to evolve, not in chaos, but in gentle transformation. For every melody born in this age, another faded quietly into the air, as if traded in perfect balance. The harmony persisted, shifting its color like the sky at twilight. And in that balance, the spirit of the first note, the song of becoming, remained, waiting for those who still knew how to listen. As the centuries drifted onward, the songs of the kingdoms deepened not in volume but in meaning. What had once been bright and playful began to shimmer with the awareness of time. Each generation added its own verse to the melody of Ooo. But even as new voices rose, the echoes of the old ones never truly faded. They lingered in the cracks of ancient walls, in the hum of enchanted forests, and in the quiet sighs of the ocean that surrounded the land. In the Candy Kingdom, the songs became more structured, almost ceremonial. No longer just tunes for joy or comfort, they became a way to remember the passage of years. Festivals turned into orchestrated performances where the people would sing of their history of Gumball's rebellion, of Bubblegum's resilience, of the peace that came after the storms. To listen to their songs was to listen to memory itself being rewritten in sugar and harmony. Their melodies shimmered with a curious duality, soft and innocent, yet carrying undertones of melancholy. For all their sweetness, the Candy people knew fragility. They sang not only to celebrate what they were, but to protect it, to keep the essence of their kingdom alive through sound. Even when the world outside grew uncertain, their voices kept that bubble of warmth intact. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Flame Kingdom, the music changed with the temperament of its rulers. Under calmer leadership, the songs softened into ballads of endurance, tales of fire that refused to die even when the wind howled. But when anger ruled the throne, the kingdom's rhythm became fierce again. Entire choirs of drums would echo through the molten halls, each beat a declaration of strength. To the Flame people, passion was both art and weapon, and music was their truest expression of both. Above them all, in the Ice Kingdom, the sound of loneliness became its own genre. The ruler's frozen heart sent out its longing through haunting melodies, carried on the wind like whispers no one quite understood. Ice itself was an instrument there, the tinkling of frozen water, the low hum of shifting glaciers. Even when no one sang, the kingdom still had music. It came from the stillness, from the delicate balance of things holding together in the cold. Scholars of later ages would say that the Ice Kingdom's music was the most honest reflection of the soul of Ooo. It held beauty and sorrow in equal measure, a longing for connection in a world where time and change made everything fleeting. Some believed that the lonely king, in his own way, was keeping the world's melody alive simply by yearning for it. Elsewhere, among the grassy hills and crystal streams, smaller kingdoms added their voices to the growing symphony. The earldom of Lemongrab had its discordant yells, strange and shrill, but undeniably unique their sound, a reminder that even discomfort had a place in the harmony of life. The tree folk sang low, earthy songs that vibrated through their roots, carrying tales of growth and decay beneath the soil. The merfolk beneath the seas composed music that no one on land could fully hear, their songs shaped by currents and tides rather than instruments. All across Ooo, sound had become the language of being. Even those who never spoke a word, the elemental spirits, the enchanted objects, the quiet ghosts that wandered between realms seemed to emit faint tones of their own. Every vibration added to the unseen orchestra, building towards something immense and unseen. More, and through it all, Marceline continued her journey. Her music had matured by now, her voice seasoned by centuries of observation and loss. She had sung for kings and children, for monsters and lovers, for friends long gone and dreams still alive. Her songs had become time capsules, each one containing a piece of a world that might never return. When she performed in the remnants of forgotten kingdoms, her audience was sometimes just the wind and the stars. Yet in those empty places, her music found a strange kind of resonance, as if the earth remembered her. There were stories told that her bass could awaken ruins, that echoes of her performances could still be heard days later in distant valleys. Whether true or not, these stories reflected something deeper about her, that she had become the living archive of Oo's emotional history. And in the shadows of her melodies, something else began to stir, a subtle awareness shared by those who listened closely enough. The world, they felt, was not just alive, but listening back. When songs were sung with honesty, the air seemed to pulse gently, like a quiet nod from creation itself. It was as though the land was grateful to be remembered through sound. Over time, this belief grew that Oo's kingdoms did not merely sing to the world, but with it. The forests hummed in harmony with the candy choirs. The volcanoes kept rhythm with the flame drummers. Even the glaciers sang faintly beneath the aurora, echoing the high notes of the wind. And the people began to realize that they were not composing the world's music at all. They were only discovering the melodies that had always been there. Each kingdom, each creature, was simply interpreting the same great song through its own experience, a song that had no single author, no clear beginning or end. It flowed through the veins of Ooo like light through stained glass, refracting into infinite colors of emotion and sound. And together, these colors painted the soul of the land itself. As Ooo matured into its golden age, its landscapes became symphonies unto themselves. The rustle of candy leaves in the gentle breeze carried faint harmonies, while the rivers that wound between kingdoms murmured a constant undertone, a tranquil hum that felt alive. Even the stars above seemed to blink in rhythm, their quiet flickering reflecting the pulse of a world that had learned to live in song. The great harmony of Ooo wasn't something created. It was something remembered, passed down from the earliest days when sound and soul were one. Among the people, a shared reverence began to grow, a belief that music was more than beauty or art. It was sacred. To sing was to speak in the language of the universe, a way to commune with what lay beyond sight. Some said that when two voices joined in perfect harmony, the world itself listened. Others believed that every song was a kind of offering a promise that even if all else was lost, the memory of life would remain carried on the wind. Across the kingdoms, traditions formed around this quiet faith. The Candy Kingdom hosted gatherings under the moonlight where hundreds would sing as one. Their melodies floated like lanterns into the night, each voice glowing softly against the dark. It was said that during those nights, even the stars seemed to lean closer. Princess Bubblegum, who rarely joined in, would stand at the edge of the crowd and watch with a faint smile, analytical perhaps, but touched by something older than reason. In the Flame Kingdom, the music of devotion took on a fiery grandeur. When the moon was eclipsed, the citizens gathered around great pits of molten light and struck drums forged from blackened stone. Their rhythms shook the air itself, resonating through the bones of the earth. It was a form of prayer, though not in words. Their songs didn't ask for mercy or favor. They were declarations of presence, fierce, alive, unending. Each beat said, "We burn because we must." In the cold reaches of the Ice Kingdom, however, song became a lifeline. The isolation of that place was vast, and so its music took on an intimacy few others could understand. The lonely king, with his cracked heart and fragile mind, composed endless ballads of longing. They echoed through the icy halls like drifting ghosts, each one a plea for warmth. To an outsider, his music might sound mournful, even tragic. But for those who listened deeply, there was tenderness hidden in the frost, a kind of love that survived even when reason could not. It was proof that music could exist even in despair, that beauty could bloom from loneliness, like a frozen flower refusing to wither. Other lands joined the chorus in their own ways. The grasslands sang through wind chimes strung from tree to tree, turning the wilderness into an open-air cathedral. The nightosphere, strange as it was, held its own twisted symphony, a constant thrum of distorted tones that mirrored the chaos of its realm. Even that darkness, however wild, still played its part in the whole. Every dissonant sound was necessary. Every discord eventually found resolution. And there were still travelers, bards, and wanderers who roamed between these kingdoms, preserving and blending their sounds. Some carried handmade instruments carved from relics of the old world. A flute shaped from a melted bottle, a harp strung with silver thread pulled from forgotten machines. Each played differently, but together they carried the memory of a world that refused to forget its origins. Marceline, as ever, remained the most enduring of them all. Her music evolved as Ooo changed. Gone were the days when she played only for herself. Now she sang for the land. Her songs were softer, gentler, less about loss and more about understanding. The way her voice drifted through the air felt like a lullaby for the entire world. She would perch on a rooftop in the quiet hours, her bass humming like a heartbeat beneath the stars, and it was said that even the restless spirits calmed when she played. In her melodies, the kingdoms found themselves reflected. She would weave the delicate harmonies of the Candy people into the fiery rhythm of the flame drums, layering it with the crystalline whispers of the Ice Kingdom. Her songs didn't just describe Ooo, they were Ooo distilled into sound. To hear her play was to glimpse the soul of the world through vibration alone. It wasn't unusual for people to travel for days to hear her perform, though she never announced where she would be. Her concerts were spontaneous, like natural events, a thunderstorm of beauty appearing without warning. Sometimes she would sing in forgotten places, the remains of a fallen tower, or a forest where the trees still bore scars of ancient magic. Wherever she went, silence seemed to bloom around her. Listeners often said that her songs made them remember things they had never lived, fragments of old worlds, memories that didn't belong to them. A soldier might hear the faint hum of his ancestors' lullabies. A child might feel as if they had stood in the ruins of pre-war cities, hearing the faint hum of lost machines. Marceline's music transcended time, carrying echoes of everything Ooo had ever been. In this way, she became something more than a performer. She was a keeper of continuity, a living bridge between past and present, between sound and silence. Her songs were not about preservation alone, but transformation. Every time she played, she changed the melody slightly, letting it grow and breathe, ensuring that Oo's music remained alive rather than frozen in time. The world listened to her, and through her it remembered. Even the wind carried her refrains to the farthest corners of creation, weaving them into the songs of others. She became, without realizing it, the heart of Oo's symphony, not the loudest voice, but the one that held everything together. And as she played beneath the vast, star-filled sky, the land itself seemed to hum in reply, as though the kingdoms, the candy, the flame, the ice, the slime were all singing back to her. Their music, distinct yet united, formed a single, gentle truth, that in the end, Ooo itself was a song, and every creature, every heartbeat, was a note within it. As the melodies of the kingdoms intertwined across the centuries, something subtle began to shift in the soul of Ooo. The people started to sense that their songs were not only keeping the world alive, but guiding it, shaping its mood, its weather, even its dreams. It wasn't magic in the traditional sense. It was gentler, deeper. The more they sang, the more Ooo seemed to respond with balance. The storm softened, the forests bloomed more vibrantly, and even the restless shadows of old magic seemed quieter, soothed by the endless hum of harmony. In the Candy Kingdom, when tensions arose between its citizens, the choirs would gather in the town square to sing together until peace returned. Their voices were their diplomacy. The soft tones carried across their pastel walls like ripples in calm water, reminding everyone that joy and gentleness were their greatest strengths. It wasn't that they ignored the darker things, rather, they transformed them, dissolving unease into melody until only sweetness remained. In the Flame Kingdom, the practice of rhythm became a way to manage fury. They discovered that anger, when given a rhythm, became energy instead of destruction. When conflicts threatened to erupt, they drummed. The entire kingdom would join children, elders, even the rulers, pounding in unison, until every burst of emotion had burned itself into sound. And when the last echo faded, what remained was quiet understanding, the kind only found after shared catharsis. High in the Ice Kingdom, where loneliness reigned eternal, the king's sad songs had taken on a mythic quality. His music spread beyond the borders of his frozen lands, carried by the wind to those who needed to remember that sorrow could be beautiful. Many nights, wanderers would claim to hear faint strains of his melody under the stars, a song of longing, so pure it made them cry without knowing why. The Ice Kingdom, once seen as cold and distant, became known as the keeper of quiet emotion, a place where solitude and song were one and the same. There were other voices, too. The Slime Kingdom's playful, looping harmonies spread like living laughter. The tree folk's deep chants became seasonal rites that helped the forest grow stronger each year. Even the distant lands that few visited, the dust valleys, the whispering isles, the crumbling remains of old human cities began to resonate with faint echoes, as though they too were remembering how to sing. The entire world of Ooo had become an orchestra without borders, every living thing contributing in its own way. And through all of it, Marceline continued to wander. Centuries passed, etniged, kingdoms rose and fell, and still her songs endured. She became the link between eras, the one who remembered the original tones, the primal hum of creation that once slept beneath the world. Some said that when she sang alone under the aurora, she could hear faint harmonies in response, the sound of ancient beings older than the elements, humming along from the deep places of the world. Her songs grew quieter with time. No longer the raw, emotional outpourings of her youth, they became something almost sacred, half lullaby, half requiem. In her music lived all the laughter of the Candy Kingdom, all the fire of the Flame Kingdom, all the melancholy of the Ice Kingdom, and all the peace of the Slime. She didn't just play for Ooo anymore. She played as Ooo. Those who heard her performances in those final ages often described a strange, beautiful sensation, as though they were being shown visions through sound. Some saw memories of long-lost friends. Others felt the pulse of the world beneath their feet. There were even stories of her songs calming wild magic, taming the chaos of forgotten artifacts. Music, it seemed, had transcended art. It had become the purest form of connection, a living bridge between matter and spirit. It was around this time that Oo's scholars began to whisper of a coming stillness, not destruction, but transformation. The world had been singing for eons, and they wondered what might come after the final verse. What would happen when Oo's great song reached its natural end? Would silence follow, or would it become something new, a single, eternal tone that carried all things within it? Marceline, when asked about such things, would only smile faintly and say that songs don't really end. They just change form. She believed that the essence of music was the same as the essence of life. It begins, it grows, it fades, and then it finds another way to be heard. Even silence, she once said, is a kind of song, the world catching its breath before the next verse begins. And so the kingdoms continued to sing. The candy choirs, the flame drummers, the ice ballads, all weaving together, each aware in some distant part of their hearts that their voices were part of something much larger than themselves. Together they carried the memory of creation, the warmth of friendship, the ache of loss, and the promise of renewal. In the twilight of that age, Ooo glowed with harmony. Its lands pulsed like a living instrument, tuned perfectly to the heartbeats of its people. The stars above seemed to shimmer in rhythm, and the rivers below whispered back in gentle accompaniment. It was said that if you stood still long enough, anywhere in Ooo, you could hear it, the faint, endless song that bound everything together. A melody that began before time and would one day, perhaps, carry beyond it. A song sung by kingdoms, by fire and ice, by memory and dream. The song of Ooo, still alive, still unfolding, waiting quietly for its final verse. The wastes were not always barren. Long ago they had been fertile lands, rich with rivers and forests, alive with birdsong and laughter. But the mushroom war had left its mark, and the earth remembered the fire and sorrow. In the aftermath, silence fell over that land, a quiet so thick it seemed almost alive. And yet, even in the emptiness, there was a pulse faint at first, a low vibration under the cracked soil, as if the world itself refused to stop breathing. It was in this quiet that the bard appeared. No one knew exactly from where he came, or when he first walked into the wastes. Some said he had emerged from the ruins themselves, a child of memory and melody, born to keep the song alive. Others believed he had been wandering since before the world remembered song at all, carrying in his heart a fragment of the first note, that faint hum that shaped the stars. Whatever his origin, he moved with a grace that made the barren lands feel less empty. He carried a lute made from splintered wood and twisted metal, remnants of cities that had long vanished. The strings hummed with a resonance that felt older than time, responding to his touch as if they remembered every song ever played. When he strummed, the wastes seemed to listen. Sand shifted gently. Old bones whispered beneath the surface, and even the wind slowed to hear. His melodies were neither sad nor joyful. They were necessary. Each note stitched together fragments of memory, mending the broken edges of the world one vibration at a time. The bard traveled slowly, stopping at the ruins of old kingdoms, the hollow shells of cities where ghosts of laughter lingered. Wherever he went, he sang quietly to the stones, coaxing them to remember. Sometimes, faintly, the echoes of his music reached other wandering souls. Lost travelers would hear his distant songs on the wind, a lullaby that seemed to come from the very earth beneath their feet. Those who followed found that the music could soothe despair, ease hunger, or even spark the faintest glimmer of hope in hearts that had forgotten light. It is said that the bard never sought fame or audience. He never claimed titles, never settled in one place. He moved with the land itself, appearing where he was needed most, even if those in need did not yet realize it. Some who encountered him described a feeling of recognition, as if they had always known him or had known someone like him in a dream. His presence reminded them that music was older than kingdoms, older than wars, older than even the first note that began the world. The songs he sang were layered with history. Some were remnants of the ancient kingdoms, melodies whispered down through generations, carried on the lips of creatures and travelers. Others were born of the wastes themselves, the crackle of fire in ruined buildings, the sigh of wind through shattered towers, the faint chorus of stones settling into new formations. He wove these together, improvising endlessly, creating something entirely new yet deeply familiar. To listen to him was to hear Ooo itself breathe. There are tales of the bard encountering monsters and spirits that had long since been abandoned by the world. Where others would flee, he simply sang. And often, the creatures listened. A scarred mutant or a restless ghost might pause, tilting its head as though trying to understand, before settling into the rhythm of his music. In some rare instances, the bard's song was said to transform them, not entirely, but enough to feel recognition of the old world in their hearts. Music became a bridge, a gentle reconciliation between what had been lost and what remained. Even the stars, it was whispered, leaned closer when the bard played. Travelers looking up at the night sky claimed they saw faint glimmers respond to his lute, subtle pulses of light that shifted in time with his melody. Perhaps it was imagination, or perhaps the universe itself remembered the first note through his music. The wastes, once desolate and silent, seemed to pulse with a subtle heartbeat, a rhythm that only the bard could coax into audible life. And though his songs were often quiet, they were powerful. One note held too long could remind a listener of love long gone. A chord struck in passing could awaken the memory of a friend who had been lost to time. Sometimes, travelers would leave the wastes with tears on their cheeks, not from sadness, but from recognition, the feeling that the bard's music had spoken to the deepest, most unspoken part of them. He sang not only to preserve memory, but to remind the living of their place within it. The wastes, though scarred, were still part of Oo's story. Every ruined city, every twisted landscape, every forgotten forest carried echoes of what had come before. And through his music, the bard ensured that those echoes were not lost. He became both guardian and guide, teaching that even in emptiness, there is song, even in silence. There is listening. Some legends say that when the bard played at the edge of a ruined tower at night, the ghosts of old kingdoms would gather to listen. They were not frightening spirits, but remnants of those who had loved, lived, and sung before the world fell quiet. They formed a faint, flickering audience, and for a brief moment, the wastes seemed alive with a gentle, spectral harmony. The bard himself remained unaware of most of these listeners, focused entirely on the music itself, not the accolades or recognition. And so, night after night, century after century, he wandered, carrying the world's memory in his hands and voice. Wherever he went, he left small ripples of hope and remembrance, weaving the past into the present. The wastes were no longer silent. They had found a voice through him, a fragile but enduring melody that promised, even in desolation, that song could survive. Even the trees that had clawed their way through ruined buildings seemed to bend toward him, catching the faintest vibration of his chords in their leaves. Small creatures, long forgotten in shadowed corners, paused to listen, their tiny hearts beating in time with the rhythm. And so the bard became a quiet catalyst, a reminder that music was never just sound. It was memory. It was connection. It was survival itself. And through all this, the first note still hummed faintly beneath the earth, resonating with the bard's presence. He did not know he carried the lineage of that ancient vibration, but in his wandering, his listening, his gentle coaxing of the wastes back into harmony, he honored it in ways no one else could. The bard of the wastes was more than a musician. He was a living bridge between the past and the future, between silence and song, between memory and hope. And as he walked beneath the stars, lute in hand, the wastes themselves seemed to breathe with him, softly, patiently, carrying the promise that Oo's story would never truly be forgotten. As the bard wandered further into the wastes, his presence began to weave subtle changes into the land itself. Cracked stone paths hummed faintly beneath his feet, vibrating in response to the music he carried. The wind seemed to bend toward him, following the arcs of his melodies, carrying each note over hills and valleys like a soft river of sound. Even the dust that swirled in the emptiness seemed to shimmer with quiet light whenever he paused to play. It was as though the waste, long thought dead, had discovered a heartbeat again. The creatures of the waste, once wary and scattered, began to approach him. Not all at once and not all willingly, but curiosity drew them near. Some were twisted by the lingering effects of the mushroom war, their forms strange and unpredictable. Yet in the presence of his music, their aggression softened. The bard's songs did not command or control, but they resonated with something primal within these beings, a memory of what it meant to belong, to be part of a world alive with sound. One night, as he rested beside the ruins of a long-forgotten city, he strummed a gentle tune into the stillness. A lone figure appeared on the horizon, drawn as if by the threads of his melody. It was a wandering wolf, its coat ragged and matted, eyes glimmering with wary intelligence. Instead of fleeing, the wolf settled nearby, listening, as the bard's notes rose and fell with the rhythm of the wind. For the first time in its life, the creature seemed to relax, the tension in its muscles softening. By morning, it remained by his side, silent but faithful, a companion forged not through dominance but through song. In these moments, the bard's music became a dialogue rather than a performance. Every note was a question, every chord a gentle invitation. The wastes themselves responded in subtle ways, a faint hum in the air, the rustling of leaves from a hidden sapling, the soft trickle of water from beneath fractured stone. It was a conversation with a world long abandoned, a way of coaxing life from silence without force or expectation. The bard's fame in the wastes was never formal, never proclaimed in loud voices or banners, yet travelers and wanderers spoke of him in hushed tones, describing the strange, healing magic of his songs. Some claimed that a single night of listening could restore courage to the weary or ease grief too heavy to carry alone. Others whispered that those who heard him for long enough began to dream differently, more vividly, more clearly, as if the music had unlocked memories and truths buried deep within. And still, the bard never stayed in one place. He understood that his role was not to own the music, but to shepherd it. Each ruined city, each empty field, each broken monument of civilization carried a fragment of the world's memory, and it was his responsibility to awaken it, if only for a moment. He became both a guardian and a witness, silently ensuring that nothing, no ruin, no scar, no echo of sorrow would be entirely forgotten. There are tales of the bard encountering remnants of the old world machines long rusted into the earth, instruments broken by time, books whose pages had turned to dust. He would touch these objects lightly, strum them if he could, or hum their forgotten tune, reviving the faintest shadow of their former life. In his hands, the detritus of history became a living melody, a reminder that even in decay, there is a song waiting to be heard. Travelers often describe the air around him as subtly warmer, quieter yet filled with expectation, as if the world itself was holding its breath to listen. They spoke of faint lights, soft vibrations in the ground, and the sense that Ooo remembered itself through him. His presence was gentle, unassuming, yet deeply powerful, a quiet testament to the enduring magic of song and memory. In this way, the Bard of the Wastes carried forward the legacy of the first note. He reminded Ooo that music is not simply entertainment, nor is it a means of control. It is a language older than kingdoms, a keeper of memory, a bridge between past and future. Through him, the barren lands were not silent, the ruined cities not empty, and the creatures not forgotten. The world itself had found a humble guardian, one who wandered without claim, yet left echoes that would last far beyond his steps. And so, night after night, the bard continued through the wastes, his lute strung with the memory of the world. The wind, the sand, the creatures, and even the ruins themselves leaned closer to hear, carrying his songs forward on invisible threads, whispering the promise that no melody, however fragile, however lost, would ever truly vanish from Ooo. As the bard's journey stretched on, his music began to take on a quality that was almost tactile, as if the very air around him could be molded by sound. Travelers would speak of stepping into a space where he played and feeling the weight of history lift gently from their shoulders, replaced by a sense of profound calm. Every chord seemed to touch not just the ear, but the heart, stirring long-buried memories and quiet truths that could not be spoken in words alone. In the wastes, there were remnants of civilization that had long ceased to function in their intended forms. Rusted machines lay half-buried in sand, their gears silent for centuries, while crumbling towers leaned precariously over empty streets. Where others might have seen decay, the bard saw opportunity. Each object, each fragment, became a potential instrument in his songs. A broken pipe might carry a haunting whistle. A cracked drum could reverberate like thunder. Even shards of glass reflected the faintest resonance, turning sunlight into a chorus of notes that danced across the ground. It is said that the bard's music could awaken memory not only in the living, but in the land itself. The ground beneath his feet would pulse softly, echoing the vibrations of his lute. Trees long dormant would shiver with life, tiny buds appearing in places thought barren. Rivers, sluggish and muddied, would catch his melodies and ripple with a faint harmony. Even the wind seemed to answer, carrying his tunes to distant corners of the wastes, stirring small creatures into movement, coaxing song from places that had known only silence. And yet, despite the power of his music, the bard remained modest. He did not perform for audiences, and he did not seek recognition. He wandered slowly, patiently, understanding that the song of Ooo was not his alone. Every note was a conversation with the past, present, and future, a dialogue between all the kingdoms, the spirits, and the echoes of history. He was a witness, a gentle guide, a reminder that the world's music could survive even the harshest of times. The creatures of the wastes, those twisted and scarred by the remnants of war and magic, learned to trust him. Some would approach cautiously, sniffing the air, their senses alert for danger. But the bard's music was never threatening. Each note carried reassurance, a quiet acknowledgement that they too had a place in the ongoing melody of the world. In rare instances, he is said to have calmed storms of magic gone awry simply by playing a soft, deliberate tune, coaxing chaos into harmony. His songs, though often quiet and understated, had depth and complexity that even the wisest beings found difficult to fully grasp. They were layered with centuries of memory, threaded with the faint hum of the first note that had birthed the world, and colored by the experiences of countless creatures who had walked Ooo before him. To hear him was to glimpse the entirety of the land's history in a single melody, joyful and sorrowful, chaotic and peaceful, fragile yet enduring. Some wanderers claimed that when they listened to the bard play, they experienced visions, fleeting glimpses of times long past, or futures not yet realized. They might see the ruins of a candy castle, filled with laughter, or a volcano quieted by a single drum beat, or an icy landscape singing softly beneath a green aurora. These visions were not illusions exactly, but echoes of memory stirred into life by the resonance of his music. They reminded listeners that Oo's story was woven not only from what had happened, but from what could yet unfold. There were moments when the bard would pause and allow the silence to take over, letting the wastes themselves respond. A gust of wind might whistle through a hollow building like a ghostly flute, or the ground might resonate faintly with his fading chords. Even the smallest of creatures, the insects and rodents of the waste, seemed to pause and listen. These silences were as vital as the music itself, for they were the spaces in which the world could reflect, breathe, and remember. In this way, the bard of the wastes became more than a musician. He became a bridge between the living and the forgotten, between emptiness and potential, between despair and hope. His journey was not about grand gestures or heroic feats. It was about stewardship, patience, and the quiet, persistent act of remembering. In his presence, the wastes began to hum with life again, though subtly, gently, like a heartbeat felt rather than heard. Even the stars seemed to acknowledge him, twinkling in soft rhythm when he played under the night sky. It was as if the universe itself leaned closer to listen, recognizing that Oo's melody was in capable hands. And in that quiet communion between bard, land, and cosmos, the wastes were no longer a place of abandonment. They became a sanctuary of memory, a living testament to the endurance of song and the quiet persistence of hope. And so the bard continued his wandering, lute in hand, carrying the essence of the first note in every careful strum. The wastes, once thought empty, had found their voice again, fragile yet unbroken, and through the gentle cadence of his music, they would continue to whisper the story of Ooo, waiting patiently for those who knew how to listen. The bard's influence on the wastes grew subtle yet profound, so that even the most desolate corners began to feel alive again. Travelers would stumble across a lone windmill, its blades broken and frozen in place, and hear faint, almost imperceptible notes vibrating through the air. It was as though the structure itself remembered how to sing. The bard never claimed credit for these awakenings. He merely moved onward, aware that every echo left behind could sustain life long after he had passed. At times, he would pause beside the skeletal remains of old cities, touching the jagged edges of buildings with his fingers before strumming a soft chord. Those who happened upon him often described a sensation of déjà vu, as though they were hearing melodies buried in their own memories. Some could even recall events from before their lifetimes, the laughter of humans long gone, the clamor of machines now rusted into the soil, the faint songs of elemental beings who had shaped the land. His music served as a bridge not only between the kingdoms, but between generations, between eras, between the living and what was left behind. The bard's melodies were not uniform, for he adapted them to the land and to the moment. In the cracked deserts of the wastes, his chords would carry a slow, almost hypnotic cadence, blending with the whispers of sand across stone. Among the skeletal forests, his music mimicked the creak of ancient trees, coaxing fragile leaves to tremble once more. Where water still pooled in the ruins of forgotten lakes, his songs made ripples that reflected the stars above, as if the heavens themselves were joining the symphony. Every note, every pause, was mindful, deliberate, a gentle reminder that even in ruin, beauty persists. Despite his quiet nature, the bard became known to many across Ooo as a figure of myth and legend. Children in distant kingdoms whispered about him around candlelight, telling tales of a man who could sing life into the broken earth. Monsters and spirits alike regarded him with a cautious respect, aware that his music carried the weight of worlds and the subtle authority of memory. Even Marceline, wandering on her own journeys, recognized his presence when they crossed paths. It was said that when she played alongside him, their songs intertwined in ways that resonated with the deepest chords of Oo's history. Some nights, he would find himself in the midst of ruins where the Mushroom War had left a scar so deep that even the bravest souls feared to enter. There the air was heavy with the residue of past destruction, a tension so thick it could suffocate hope. Yet the bard would settle down quietly, pluck his lute, and play. His music didn't erase the scars or pretend that nothing had happened. Instead, it acknowledged them, carried them gently, and transformed them into something that could coexist with life once more. Those who ventured near often felt an odd serenity, as if the land itself had exhaled a long-held breath. In time, his presence seemed to awaken fragments of the old kingdoms themselves. Trees, long withered, began to show small signs of regeneration. Tiny shoots of grass pushed through the cracked stones. Streams once choked with debris trickled softly again. It was never immediate, and it was never perfect. But every subtle change felt like a testament to the enduring power of memory and song. The wastes were learning once more how to breathe, how to carry life forward through quiet rhythms that did not demand attention, only presence. And yet the bard never lingered. He understood that his role was not to inhabit a place, but to nurture it, to guide it, and then to move on, carrying the accumulated melodies to the next corner of Ooo in need of quiet restoration. His journey was endless, a solitary pilgrimage through silence and ruin, through echoes of joy and sorrow alike. Every note he strummed was a stitch in the tapestry of the world, subtle and unseen, yet essential to the enduring song of Ooo. Legends tell of nights when the bard would pause under the stars and gaze at the horizon, listening not just to his own music, but to the faint hum of the world around him. It is said that the wastes themselves seemed to respond to stone settling in resonance with a chord, a gust of wind rising to carry a melody further than it could travel alone. The faint stirrings of creatures awakened to life by the vibration of sound. In those moments, the boundaries between past and present, between living and memory, blurred, and Ooo sang as one vast, quiet organism. It is through these harmonies that the bard became more than a traveler. He was a keeper of memory, a quiet architect of the world's continuity, and a reminder that even in desolation, life and song endure. His music taught those who listened to notice the faintest sounds, the drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind, and to recognize that every vibration carried meaning, every echo a story. Through centuries of wandering, the bard's presence transformed the wastes from a place of emptiness into a realm alive with quiet possibility. Travelers would come, lost or weary, and leave carrying fragments of his melodies in their hearts. Kingdoms far beyond the wastes heard faint ripples of his songs in dreams, in wind-borne whispers, and in the subtle harmonics of the land itself. The bard had become a conduit through which Ooo remembered itself, a reminder that even when silence dominates, song is never truly lost. And so, under the vast, star-speckled sky of the wastes, with his lute resting against his shoulder and a soft hum on his lips, the bard continued to walk. The land pulsed gently with his music, carrying the promise that every note, no matter how faint, is a thread that binds the past, present, and future of Ooo together. In his quiet wandering, the world remembered itself, one note at a time, and the wastes, once barren and silent, had discovered again that the heart of Ooo was never still, so long as there was someone willing to listen and to sing. Beyond the kingdoms, beyond the bustling cities, beyond even the wandering paths of the bard of the wastes, there exists a place not measured by time or distance, a space between worlds, quiet and expansive, where the noise of life fades into something deeper. Some say this is where the echoes of Ooo travel when they are not heard. Some say it is where the first note of creation lingers, floating patiently between moments, waiting for attention. It is here, in this vast emptiness, that the music of the world can breathe without interruption, stretching across the infinite quiet between stars. To imagine it is to imagine silence that is not empty, but full of space, heavy with possibility, brimming with the potential of song that has yet to be heard, melodies that have drifted out of reach from kingdoms and creatures alike. It is a quiet that is alive, and in that stillness, one can almost hear the gentle hum of the universe itself, a faint resonance that carries memory and hope in equal measure. Those who have wandered near say it is soothing beyond comprehension, like the world itself is exhaling slowly, deliberately, as if to lull every listener into calm awareness. Marceline once spoke of this space as if it were a place she could step into with her music. Her voice, soft and low, could stretch into the void between worlds, carrying with it fragments of every song she had ever played. It was not a performance exactly, for there was no audience other than the quiet itself. Yet the music seemed to be absorbed, reflected, and gently returned, an echo that taught even her how to listen in a new way. Here, sound did not merely exist. It lingered, danced, and wove itself into the fabric of creation. A reminder that even in emptiness, there is life. It is said that the quiet between stars is the place where all the songs of Ooo converge when they are not being sung. The laughter of the Candy Kingdom, the fire drums of the Flame Kingdom, the haunting ballads of the Ice Kingdom, the subtle harmonies of the Slime, and even the whispers of the Wastes, carried by the bard, all of these exist here, mingling in a space untouched by decay or distraction. No kingdom has ownership of this music. It belongs to no one, and yet to everyone, a collective consciousness of memory and feeling that waits patiently for ears willing to listen. To step into the quiet between stars is to notice the patterns of sound that exist beyond hearing. It is not a place of noise, but of resonance. One might feel the faint thrum of distant rivers, the gentle pulse of old roots, or the lingering echo of songs once played beneath moonlit skies. Every note, every chord ever sung, leaves a subtle imprint here, a trace that can be sensed rather than heard. Even the smallest creatures contribute their vibrations, though they are imperceptible to most. The rustle of leaves, the tapping of claws, the flutter of wings all become part of a symphony that stretches across time and space. Many believe that this quiet is where Oo's true song lives, the song that connects past and present, life and memory, light and shadow. It is a song that cannot be performed in any single kingdom, nor captured by any one voice. Even the bard of the wastes, as skilled and patient as he was, could only touch it lightly, his notes brushing against its edges, adding but a single layer to the vast, eternal melody. It is a song that exists because the world itself exists, the products of countless lives joys, sorrows, and dreams converging in a gentle, infinite harmony. The stars themselves, it is said, are not merely distant suns, but markers of resonance. Each one hums faintly in a way that complements the song of Ooo, a subtle acknowledgement that the universe listens. Traveling across the night sky, these stars capture fragments of music, refract it into light, and send it outward, forming ribbons of melody that stretch farther than any creature can imagine. In the quiet between stars, the music is neither too soft nor too loud. It is exactly as it should be, timeless, patient, and infinitely gentle. The quiet also has a way of teaching stillness. Creatures who have been burdened by noise, by expectation, by the persistent rhythm of life in the kingdoms, often find a strange comfort here. They realize that to simply exist is to contribute to the song, even without deliberate action. Every heartbeat, every breath, every step becomes a note in the ongoing symphony. There is no hurry, no crescendo, no need to perform. The music of Ooo here is patient. It waits. It flows slowly, deliberately, like rivers of light threading their way between worlds. Some say that dreams are born in this quiet. When a listener closes their eyes in the kingdoms, the faint pulse of the interstellar melody enters their mind, carrying with it fragments of distant music, long-lost memories, and visions yet to be realized. Sleepers sometimes awaken with a tune in their hearts they cannot name, a sense of calm that lingers in the spaces between thoughts. It is a quiet that heals, a music that transcends hearing, and a reminder that even in absence, life and song endures. Here, too, the concept of time bends. A melody sung centuries ago may still drift through the quiet, brushing against notes from 1,000 years later, forming harmonies that no one living could have imagined. Past and future coexist in a single, gentle resonance. Listeners may sense it as nostalgia, hope, or longing, though these are only attempts to name something beyond words. In truth, the quiet between stars is a realm where sound becomes thought, and thought becomes song, a sacred continuum of being that threads all of Ooo together. And through all of this, the music is patient. It does not demand attention, but it rewards it. Those who linger find their hearts attuned to subtler rhythms, the faint heartbeat of a distant comet, the gentle sway of a hidden forest, the whisper of an unseen creature sleeping somewhere in the kingdoms. It is a place of gentle communion, a space where the listener and the universe merge into one ongoing vibration, where silence itself is alive, where absence is filled with possibility, and where the song of Ooo continues to flow uninterrupted across the infinite quiet between stars. As one drifts deeper into the quiet between stars, the sensation of scale becomes almost impossible to comprehend. The void stretches endlessly, yet it does not feel lonely. Instead, it carries a subtle intimacy, as though the universe leans in close to whisper secrets only the patient can perceive. Every flicker of distant light, every faint hum, feels intentional, as though each star participates in a slow cosmic dialogue. It is here that the most delicate threads of Oo's music intertwine with the greater symphony of the cosmos, a gentle reminder that the world is never truly isolated. The Bard of the Wastes once ventured near this realm, though few would call it a place one can truly enter. He played softly, deliberately, feeling his notes merge with the quiet, brushing against the hidden harmonies of ancient stars. Even he could not fully grasp the scope of what he was touching. It was less about mastery and more about listening, a patient conversation with something both alive and eternal. His music carried faint echoes from the kingdoms below, weaving them into the boundless stillness, a gentle reminder that even the smallest song has its place in the vastness. Marceline, too, spoke of the quiet between the stars as if it were a sanctuary for reflection. She described it not in words of grandeur, but in gentle recollections of feeling the sensation of being held by the universe itself, of understanding that every note, every memory, every heartbeat of Ooo resonates far beyond its immediate surroundings. It is a quiet that humbles, that slows the mind and eases the spirit, that teaches the listener how to hear without trying, to feel without needing comprehension. In this space, the past and future of Ooo coalesce. One might perceive the laughter of Candy Kingdom children from centuries ago, the echo of flame drums once carried across molten plains, the haunting strains of ice ballads performed long before the kingdoms were fully formed. These sounds, though faint and layered within the silence, are neither intrusive nor chaotic. They exist in a delicate balance, overlapping and harmonizing in ways that defy ordinary understanding. It is a living memory, preserved not in stone or parchment, but in vibration, waiting patiently for ears and hearts open enough to perceive it. It is also said that the quiet between stars is where music evolves on its own. Songs that began in Ooo, once thought lost or forgotten, find their way here, reshaping themselves into patterns of resonance that no mortal ear could ever fully capture. A lullaby from the Ice Kingdom might mingle with a distant echo of a Candy Kingdom melody, creating harmonics that ripple across light years. Even the smallest whispers, the murmur of leaves, the sigh of wind through ruins contribute to this infinite symphony, each vibration a note in a song too vast for anyone to perform in its entirety. Travelers who have glimpsed this quiet often describe an unexpected sense of patience. Time behaves differently here, not stopping, but slowing, stretching in a way that allows every subtle vibration to unfold fully. The silence itself feels alive, a soft pulse beneath perception. And those who linger often find themselves attuned to rhythms they never noticed before. The sway of cosmic dust, the rotation of distant planets, the faint heartbeat of Ooo as it pulses through reality. It is a place where one learns to listen deeply, to understand that music is not only sound, but presence, memory, and life itself. Some legends say that dreams themselves are born here, carried by the gentle currents of cosmic resonance back to sleeping creatures in Ooo. A child in the Candy Kingdom might awaken humming a tune that has drifted from this quiet, unaware that it was once part of a song sung by Marceline centuries ago. A wanderer in the wastes might feel a faint tug at their heart, a melody they cannot place. Yet it fills them with hope, calm, and a sense of connection. These melodies, traveling through the quiet, link all living things across space and time, reminding each listener that they are part of something far greater than themselves. And so the quiet between stars endures as a sanctuary of music and memory. It is infinite, patient, and unassuming. It does not demand attention, nor does it judge what passes through it. Yet everything that enters every note, every heartbeat, every whisper leaves its trace. It is here that Oo's songs find their eternal home, weaving together the laughter, the sorrow, the fire, and the frost into a melody that spans galaxies, carrying the essence of the world beyond the reach of any single being. Here in the vastness of space, music exists as pure, unbroken continuity. Every echo from the kingdoms, every wandering tune from the wastes, every lullaby from the Ice Kingdom, and every secret hum of life pulses together, a gentle, eternal reminder that Oo's song never truly ends. It waits, quietly and patiently, for those who are willing to listen. And in that quiet, the universe itself hums along, softly, endlessly, between the stars. In the quiet between stars, the sense of scale is impossible to measure. Distances that would seem infinite in the kingdoms feel intimate here, as if every vibration has the ability to reach every corner of the cosmos, touching places that may not even exist in ways that the mind cannot fully comprehend. It is a quiet that carries understanding, not through words, but through presence and awareness that each note of Oo's song is a thread in a larger tapestry, stretching far beyond mortal imagination. Even the stars themselves seem to listen, responding subtly to the harmonics of Oo's melodies. Constellations shift imperceptibly in rhythm with the faintest echoes of ancient lullabies, and comets may trace arcs that mirror the long-forgotten chord progressions of kingdoms now fallen to dust. The universe in this quiet feels alive not in a violent, overwhelming way, but in a gentle, patient manner, like a guardian observing and cradling everything in a single, infinite embrace. The bard of the wastes, when he strayed close to this quiet, found himself humbled by its vastness. Even his music, woven from centuries of experience and the memory of countless kingdoms, became a single thread among many, part of a grander melody that stretched across time and space. He learned to play softly here, to let the quiet respond rather than compete, to realize that some songs are not performed but shared, and some melodies are too immense for any one being to contain. Marceline, in her wanderings, spoke of feeling a profound peace when brushing against the edges of this quiet. It was a sense of home without place, of family without names, of belonging without need. Her voice, gentle and low, could reach into this vast resonance, sending whispers of lullabies into the space where time barely mattered. Here she found a connection not only to Ooo, but to the very essence of creation, where sound and memory were inseparable, and every echo carried the weight of both joy and loss. The quiet between stars is not static. It shifts and bends with the passage of time, carrying traces of what was sung yesterday, what was whispered centuries ago, and what will be sung tomorrow. Songs drift through it like cosmic rivers, mingling, bending, and sometimes breaking into fragments that flow into new harmonies. These fragments carry the memories of kingdoms, the whispers of forgotten creatures, and even the faint traces of elemental forces. It is a place where creation itself seems to exhale, offering a rhythm that is both eternal and ever-changing. Travelers who have glimpsed this quiet often speak of a sensation beyond hearing, a way of sensing music that engages the body and spirit rather than the ears. They feel vibrations that resonate in their bones, colors that shimmer in response to chords they cannot name, and emotions that arise without reason or explanation. It is a quiet that teaches them patience, that encourages them to perceive not only what is present, but also what has been and what may yet be. It is a sanctuary for those willing to let the world speak to them softly. Even the smallest creatures, unseen by wandering eyes, contribute to the song. Tiny insects, the faint stirring of moss, the subtle shifting of dust, all are threads woven into the cosmic melody. Nothing is too insignificant to matter here, for every vibration, no matter how subtle, merges into the larger pattern. In this quiet, the world is not empty. It is listening, responding, and singing, whether or not anyone is aware of it. Some say that dreams are born here, carried from this quiet back into the sleeping minds of those in Ooo. A child in the Candy Kingdom might hum a tune in the morning that she heard in her dreams, a melody traced to this vast interstellar resonance. A wanderer in the wastes might awaken with a sense of calm, inexplicable, but profound, as if a hidden harmony had brushed against their soul. Through these dreams, the quiet touches the living world, threading memory, emotion, and song into hearts and minds, often without conscious recognition. In this boundless space, the past and future coexist seamlessly. A song played in the Ice Kingdom 1,000 years ago can mingle with a melody from the distant future, forming harmonics that no single being could have imagined. Time folds gently around the music, allowing fragments of joy, sorrow, and memory to meet in quiet conversation. This interweaving of eras is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it preserves the essence of Ooo in ways that no history book, songbook, or spoken word ever could. And so the quiet between stars endures, patient and eternal, a sanctuary for all melodies, a place where Oo's song continues beyond hearing, beyond comprehension, and beyond the reach of any single kingdom. It is not a silence that isolates, but one that unites, a living space where every note ever sung, every heartbeat, every whisper of life contributes to a vast, ongoing symphony. In this quiet, the universe listens, cradles, and remembers, and the song of Ooo flows gently, endlessly, between the stars. In the quiet between stars, the sense of eternity becomes palpable. Here, a single vibration can linger for centuries, folding upon itself and intertwining with echoes from other times and places. It is a space where sound becomes memory and memory becomes song, forming a living lattice that stretches beyond what any creature could perceive in a single lifetime. To linger here is to feel the weight of existence itself, not as a burden, but as a gentle current that carries every being along a shared rhythm. The bard of the wastes, wandering as he always did, occasionally found himself drawn to the edges of this quiet. He did not fully enter, for it is a realm that exists beyond the boundaries of mortal perception, yet his music could touch it. When his lute whispered soft chords into the void, the harmonics of the stars seemed to respond, bending light into subtle colors and creating a resonance that rippled across the unseen cosmos. He realized that his role was not to control or master this space, but to participate, to contribute, and to listen. Every note he played became a bridge between the living kingdoms of Ooo and the silent expanses of the universe. Marceline, too, experienced the quiet differently from others. She spoke of feeling a presence, not a being, but an awareness that welcomed her melodies, coaxed them into forms she could not imagine, and returned them with subtle transformations. In these moments, her music was no longer hers alone. It became part of the eternal pattern of sound that sustains Ooo, the wastes, the kingdoms, and even the silent corners beyond time. It is a reminder that music is not merely an expression of self, but a thread that binds all existence together. The quiet between stars teaches patience in the most profound way. There is no rush, no urgency, no expectation for recognition or response. A single chord might linger for decades, fading slowly into the harmonics of distant worlds before transforming into something new. Travelers who brush against this quiet often report a strange sensation of timelessness. They feel that they are both here and elsewhere, present yet part of something infinite. Every sound, every echo, every heartbeat becomes significant, a contribution to a symphony that cannot be measured or fully grasped, yet is undeniably real. It is also a place where absence is meaningful. The silence is not emptiness. It is the space in which life and song can unfold without interference. Even in the wastes, where destruction seems complete, a faint trace of melody can drift into the void and find resonance here, connecting with echoes from other times, other places, other beings. The quiet between stars becomes a holding space, a sanctuary where fragments of sound, memory, and emotion can continue to exist even when they are no longer heard by mortal ears. Legend suggests that the stars themselves carry fragments of Oo's song because of this quiet. Each star hums with faint resonance, a vibration that aligns subtly with the melodies and memories carried through space. Comet drifting across light years trace arcs that echo ancient harmonies. Even black voids, seemingly silent, hold faint vibrations that ripple through the quiet. Everything contributes to the ongoing melody, whether consciously or not, creating a cosmic web of sound that is both fragile and enduring. Travelers often awaken from dreams influenced by this space with a profound sense of peace. A lullaby sung centuries ago in the Ice Kingdom may resurface in the subconscious, mingling with distant harmonics from the Candy Kingdom or the Wastes. Even creatures long thought isolated from one another can share in these melodies through dreams, carried on currents that move beyond sight, touch, or ordinary sound. In this way, the quiet between stars becomes a silent teacher, showing that connection does not always require presence, and that music, memory, and life are inseparably intertwined. The quiet also allows for the reweaving of broken threads, songs lost in the Mushroom War, melodies forgotten by wandering bards, the soft hums of creatures long gone. Before we continue, take a moment to settle in. Adjust your pillows, feel the weight of your blanket, and let the world around you soften. Tonight we follow Marceline, the vampire queen, into a story not of conquest or chaos, but of music, memory, and a quiet that flows like moonlight over the lands of Ooo. Imagine her floating gently above the kingdoms, her bass guitar slung lightly across her shoulder, the soft curve of her voice ready to carry a song that might be the last lullaby the world will ever hear. Marceline has always been a wanderer, her presence threading through Ooo like a melody that moves in and out of the lives of those she touches. She remembers the kingdoms when they were vibrant, chaotic, and alive, as well as the wastes when silence stretched long and deep. She has seen what happens when laughter fades and memories dim, and through it all, she has carried a voice capable of soothing both joy and sorrow. Her songs are more than entertainment. They are vessels of remembrance, whispers of connection, and gentle guides for hearts heavy with the weight of existence. As the world moves toward the quiet that stretches between stars, Marceline feels a pull not of duty, nor of obligation, but of understanding. Somewhere in the far reaches of the cosmos, the melodies of Ooo gather in patient harmony, waiting for her to add her voice. The last lullaby she intends to sing is not a performance for the living alone. It is a song for the memories that persist, for the echoes of the kingdoms, for the creatures who have passed, and for those who will sleep in the future, cradled by the resonance of her music. She begins softly, strumming her bass with deliberate care. Each note is a ripple through space, carrying fragments of time and emotion. The melody rises gently, never demanding, but rather inviting. The chords weave through the air like strands of silver moonlight, brushing against ruins, drifting over forests, and threading through the empty streets of the Candy Kingdom. Even the wastes seem to lean closer, as though listening intently, remembering what it is to hum, to sing, to exist with gentle purpose. Marceline's voice floats over her chords, a soothing murmur that bends reality just slightly. Her words are not complex, but they resonate deeply, touching the heart of Ooo itself. She sings of the first days, of laughter shared under sunlight, of bonds formed across the kingdoms. She sings of loss, of battles fought, and of creatures who endured beyond what was expected. Every note carries memory and empathy, a recognition that even endings hold beauty, and even silence can be full of meaning. There is a tenderness in her delivery that draws the listener closer, whether mortal, magical, or spectral. She does not rush. She allows each note to settle and be absorbed. Listeners feel themselves unburdened, as though the weight of history, grief, and longing lifts gently, carried by the song. Her lullaby is not merely for those awake. It reaches into the sleeping minds of Oo's creatures, stirring dreams that echo her melody, a quiet guide toward peace. Even the stars seem to respond to her voice. Their light refracts subtly, forming delicate patterns that dance in quiet rhythm with the song. Comets and meteors trace gentle arcs that align with her melody, and the faint hum of the universe seems to harmonize with her chords. It is a cosmic acknowledgement that music, memory, and connection are threads woven through all things, linking the kingdoms, the wastes, and the infinite expanse between stars. Marceline knows the weight of this task. The last lullaby cannot erase pain, nor can it prevent the inevitable changes the world must face. But it can cradle what remains, it can honor memory, and it can ensure that the song of Ooo continues, even as the kingdoms fall silent and the winds of time carry whispers of what was. She hums a long, drawn-out note, feeling it ripple through the lands below, through the quiet corners of the wastes, and into the vast space between worlds. It carries reassurance, comfort, and the enduring sense that life, even when fragile, is meaningful. Her song shifts, carrying fragments of melodies from every kingdom she has known. A laugh from the Candy Kingdom intertwines with the gentle sigh of the Ice Kingdom. The soft chime of water from a distant lake resonates with the low rumble of volcanic fields. Even the faint whispers of creatures lost to time find their place within the harmonic flow of her lullaby. Marceline becomes more than a singer. She becomes a vessel, a conduit through which the collective memory of Ooo passes, transformed into music that can endure beyond sight and sound. And as she plays, she feels the subtle presence of the bard of the wastes, perhaps wandering nearby, perhaps merely brushing against the echoes she leaves behind. Her melody and his work in the wastes intertwine in quiet conversation, one gently guiding the living and one shepherding the echoes of what is past. Together, though separated by distance, they carry the weight of Oo's song forward, ensuring that no note is lost, no memory forgotten, and no heartbeat goes unheard. In the gentle pull of her last lullaby, creatures across Ooo feel a soft reassurance. A rabbit in the forest pauses, listening to a tune it cannot fully comprehend but recognizes as familiar. A tree shivers softly, its leaves vibrating in response to the invisible currents of sound. The wind seemed to bend, not with force, but with gentle curiosity, carrying strands of the melody to distant corners. Marceline's music touches all things, alive and unseen, reminding every part of Ooo that connection is never truly broken. Her voice continues, steady and unhurried, a gentle current flowing across kingdoms and wastes alike. The song is neither mournful nor celebratory. It simply exists as a bridge between what was, what is, and what may be. Each note carries recognition, validation, and a quiet assurance. Marceline's last lullaby is a song for the end, yes, but also for continuity, a subtle insistence that even when silence falls, the resonance of life persists. And so, with her bass cradled in her arms and her voice threading through the quiet spaces of Ooo, Marceline sings on. Each chord, each vibration, each whisper of sound becomes part of a legacy larger than herself. Her lullaby moves through ruins and rivers, forests and skies, wastes and kingdoms, carrying the enduring truth that even the final song of Ooo can be gentle, patient, and filled with hope. As Marceline continues, her lullaby grows in subtle complexity, yet never overwhelms. Each note is deliberate, a soft brush against the fabric of Ooo itself. The chords carry layers of memory, laughter, sorrow, triumph, and quiet contemplation, all woven together so gently that even the harshest echoes of the wastes are softened by their presence. Her music drifts into the farthest reaches of the kingdoms, where abandoned streets and crumbling towers now remember life not through stone or paper, but through the vibrations of her song. Her voice bends lightly, almost like a sigh, curling around ruins and ruins alone, whispering to the ghosts of the past. The Candy Kingdom hears the faint echoes of children's laughter she once knew, now threaded into the harmonic weave of her melody. The Flame Kingdom feels warmth where cold ash once lay, a subtle reminder that even the fiercest fires can leave behind traces of gentle memory. And the Ice Kingdom, with its frozen lakes and silent forests, catches the soft undertone of longing in her voice, a reflection of what has been lost, and a guide toward understanding that even endings hold beauty. Marceline's music reaches beyond Ooo, threading outward toward the quiet between stars. Each note carries a fragment of the kingdom's collective memory, intertwining with cosmic resonance in a way that is almost imperceptible, yet profoundly powerful. The stars themselves seem to lean closer, faintly refracting her chords into streaks of light, while comets trace gentle arcs, their tails brushing melodies across the void. Even the subtle vibrations of distant planets hum in response, creating harmonics that cannot be heard with ears alone, but felt deep within the chest and the heart. Her lullaby is patient. It allows each note to settle and linger, giving the universe time to absorb and return it. She does not rush, for rushing would diminish the gentle truth embedded within each chord. She sings not for recognition, not for applause, not for legacy, but for the song itself, for the living memory of Ooo, for the creatures who have passed and those who will follow, and for the quiet spaces that always carry the resonance of life even when it is unseen. Occasionally, her eyes lift to the horizon, to the faint shimmer of stars reflected on the rivers, lakes, and frozen plains of the kingdoms. Each glance reminds her of the small, unnoticed moments that have shaped Ooo, the soft rustle of leaves in a forgotten forest, the tiny flutter of a dragonfly over a quiet pond, the hushed breathing of sleeping creatures. These are the notes she carries into her lullaby, unseen yet deeply felt, transforming the ordinary into part of the eternal melody. There is a sense of conversation in her music, a dialogue that stretches across space and time. The bard of the wastes may be wandering far below, plucking chords into the ruins, yet here in her song their melodies touch. His work in the wastes resonates with the threads of her voice, bridging emptiness and sound, silence and memory. Together, though apart, they carry the enduring heartbeat of Ooo, ensuring that every song, every echo, and every whispered memory is preserved and carried gently forward. Marceline's lullaby drifts into hidden corners of the wastes, touching creatures long thought forgotten. A small fox lifts its head, listening, its fur bristling slightly at the vibrations. A lone bird, wings weak from scarcity, stirs in its nest, lulled by a melody it has never known but somehow recognizes. Even the wind seems to pause, bending around the song rather than through it, carrying the music gently over deserts, forests, rivers, and mountains. It is a music that heals, a song that reassures, and a voice that teaches the quiet persistence of connection. And still Marceline continues, her voice unhurried, each note an offering, each chord a gentle hand extended toward the world. She sings of what was, of what is, and of what will be, remembered long after she drifts beyond sight. Her lullaby is not just a farewell, but a bridge, a delicate thread connecting past to future, life to memory, and the kingdoms to the vast, quiet beyond. In this way, Marceline becomes more than a singer. She is a keeper of time, a guardian of sound, a quiet shepherd of memory. Her last lullaby does not merely echo through Ooo. It settles in the hearts of those who hear it, seen or unseen, sleeping or awake, carrying with it the gentle assurance that life, memory, and song are never truly lost, only transformed into the ongoing melody of the world. Bedtime. As the last lullaby unfolds, Marceline's voice begins to weave a tapestry of subtle harmonies that stretch beyond the kingdoms and the wastes, drifting into the vast quiet that flows between stars. Each note carries with it a history of Ooo, the laughter of children in the Candy Kingdom, the crackling warmth of the Flame Kingdom, the silent resilience of the Ice Kingdom, and even the echoes of creatures wandering the wastes. Her song is not grandiose or overwhelming. It is deliberate, soft, and intimate, like a gentle current of memory threading through the world. The melody seems to ripple through the air itself. The trees shiver in resonance, their leaves vibrating in time with the bass hum of her guitar. Rivers, once muddied and sluggish, catch the vibrations and ripple gently, reflecting moonlight and starlight in patterns that seem almost choreographed. Even stones, dust, and forgotten ruins absorb her music, holding it quietly in their structure, preserving fragments of her melody as if the land itself wished to remember. The world becomes a living instrument under her hands, responding to the care and thought she places into each chord. Marceline is aware of the subtle interplay of sound and memory, of life and absence. She knows that some of her listeners are no longer living in the physical sense, yet their presence lingers in the echoes of the kingdom. Spirits of old creatures, long departed from Ooo, feel the gentle pull of her song. They drift closer, hovering around the remnants of their homes, drawn by the tender resonance of her voice. Each note she sings acknowledges them, honors them, and gently guides them into the ongoing symphony of Ooo. Her lullaby does not demand attention, but it does cradle every being it touches, both living and spectral. There is a cosmic quality to the lullaby, a sense that it extends far beyond the reach of mortal perception. The quiet between stars vibrates faintly with her chords, subtle harmonics that intertwine with the unseen rhythm of the universe. Stars shimmer in quiet resonance with her music, and comets trace arcs that reflect her melody in ways that cannot be seen, only sensed. The fabric of space itself hums gently with her song, carrying it across light years to touch points in Ooo yet untouched by her presence. The lullaby becomes an invisible thread linking the past, present, and future, a bridge across time as delicate as it is enduring. The bard of the wastes, though distant, feels the faint touch of her music on the winds that drift over the barren lands he walks. His own songs, born of ruin and solitude, respond softly, intertwining with hers in a silent conversation. There is no need for words, no need for acknowledgement. Their melodies meet and blend in the space between, creating harmonics that echo through the kingdoms, the wastes, and beyond. The last lullaby is not only Marceline's song, it becomes part of a larger resonance, a collaboration between memory, music, and the enduring spirit of Ooo. Even the smallest creatures respond. A fox in the wastes pauses to lift its head, ears twitching at the faint hum. A bird in the Ice Kingdom lifts its wings, swaying slightly as though carried on invisible currents of sound. A lone snail in the Candy Kingdom curls slightly in rhythm, feeling the vibrations in its tiny shell. Marceline's song is everywhere yet nowhere, intimate yet vast. A quiet touch that assures all creatures that even in endings there is continuity, and even in silence, life and memory persist. Marceline herself becomes a part of the melody she carries. Her presence is light, almost ethereal, as though she floats between realms while her song threads through time and space. She is aware that this may be the last lullaby she ever sings, and with that awareness comes a gentle clarity. There is no fear, no sorrow in her voice, only recognition, acceptance, and profound tenderness. Each note is deliberate, each pause considered, creating a rhythm that allows the universe itself to breathe along with her melody. Her music becomes a soft guide, leading listeners towards stillness and reflection. The kingdoms, the wastes, and even the stars themselves seem to settle under the influence of her chords. There is no urgency, no crescendo, only the careful unfolding of melody and memory. She teaches, without teaching, that endings are part of a larger song, and that every life, every kingdom, every heartbeat contributes to a harmony that is eternal. In her lullaby, the listener can feel the presence of all who have come before, and all who will follow, united by the quiet resonance of her song. And so Marceline sings, letting each note drift like silver threads into the night, touching ruins and forests, rivers and mountains, wastes and kingdoms alike. Her last lullaby is not a farewell in despair, but a testament to the enduring power of music, memory, and connection. It carries the stories of Ooo, its joys, its sorrows, its quiet moments, and its vibrant life, weaving them into a song that is infinite, patient, and gentle. Each listener, awake or asleep, carries a fragment of this melody, a thread linking them to the enduring heart of the world, ensuring that even when the kingdoms fall silent, the song of Ooo lives on. As Marceline continues her last lullaby, the melody deepens in its intimacy, winding through the kingdoms and wastes with a gentle persistence. Each note is infused with the weight of history, the memory of laughter, and the soft ache of loss. The Candy Kingdom hears the warmth of friendships long past, while the Ice Kingdom senses the quiet beauty of moments frozen in time. The waste, once silent and desolate, hum faintly in response, touched by the remnants of life carried through her song. Every corner of Ooo seems to lean closer, listening, remembering, and breathing with the cadence of her voice. Her bass resonates softly beneath her vocals, each pluck like a heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the world itself. The vibrations reach far beyond what the ear can detect, stirring creatures hidden in forests, caves, and ruins. Tiny insects pause mid-flight, listening to echoes they cannot name. Trees sway subtly, their branches responding to frequencies imperceptible to the waking world. Rivers shift in gentle ripples, reflecting the moon and stars as though acknowledging her presence. Her music moves through all things, animate and inanimate alike, threading the pulse of life into the very essence of Ooo. The quiet between notes is as important as the notes themselves. Marceline allows her song to breathe, to linger, to echo. In these moments, the listener perceives more than sound. They perceive space, memory, and connection. A sleeping child in the Candy Kingdom might dream of skies filled with stars, feeling a comfort they cannot explain. A wandering fox in the wastes might pause and sense a safety long absent. The last lullaby does not merely reach ears. It reaches hearts, minds, and spirits, gently reminding each listener of the continuity of life and song, even when endings approach. Marceline herself becomes attuned to the invisible threads of Oo's memory as she sings. She senses the echoes of kingdoms long forgotten, the subtle remnants of civilizations that have risen and fallen, and the lingering harmonics of creatures both living and past. Each note she plays is a recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that nothing truly disappears. Music, memory, and life are intertwined, and in this final lullaby, she traces the full spectrum of that truth. Every strum, every hum, every pause carries weight, yet it carries it lightly, with the ease of someone who understands the gentle necessity of endings. The stars respond in ways subtle yet profound. Their light refracts, bending in delicate arcs, forming patterns that shift with the cadence of her melody. Meteors trace paths that reflect her chords across the night sky, and distant planets hum faintly in harmony, resonating with the vibrations she sends into the vast expanse. Even the quiet between stars seems to lean in, welcoming her contribution, folding her song into its eternal resonance. The cosmic and the terrestrial blend seamlessly in her lullaby, reminding all who sense it that Ooo is part of something far larger than the kingdoms alone. The bard of the wastes, though perhaps miles away in desolate lands, feels the faint tug of her song. His own music, born of memory and solitude, merges softly with hers, creating harmonics that ripple through the wastes, through forests, and across mountains. In the unseen spaces between them, their melodies converse, not in words, but in tone, rhythm, and vibration. Together, though apart, they ensure that every note of Oo's history, every whisper of memory, and every trace of life is honored, carried forward, and gently preserved. As Marceline's lullaby flows onward, it becomes less a song she performs, and more a presence she inhabits. She is both the singer and the song, the musician and the memory. Her voice threads through the kingdoms, weaving together light and shadow, joy and sorrow, silence and sound. Even the smallest movements, a leaf falling, a stone settling, a whisper of wind contribute to the ongoing resonance, each a note in the infinite symphony she has joined. And though this is the last lullaby, it is not a song of despair. It is a song of continuity, patience, and profound tenderness. Marceline understands that endings are not erasures, they are transformations. The kingdoms may fall silent, the wastes may stretch long and empty, and the stars may flicker in distant constellations. Yet the song persists. It flows quietly through memory, through dreams, and through the subtle harmonics that bind Ooo to the quiet between stars. With her bass cradled and her voice soft but deliberate, Marceline continues, sending her melody across every corner of the world. The song is slow, patient, and intimate, as though the universe itself is leaning closer to hear. Creatures awake and asleep feel its gentle pulse, carrying fragments of melody into their hearts. Every note becomes a thread connecting the past, the present, and the future, ensuring that the song of Ooo will endure. Her last lullaby stretches across kingdoms and wastes, weaving through life and memory, touching stars and silent spaces, a final gift that carries the essence of Ooo into eternity. It is a song for all who have lived, all who dream, and all who will someday hear its echoes. And in this gentle, unhurried music, Marceline reminds the world that even when silence falls, the heart of Ooo continues to sing, patiently, endlessly, and with profound, quiet beauty. Before we drift further, take a deep breath and feel the weight of your body sink into your bed, the soft pull of blankets wrapping around you. Imagine the echoes of Marceline's last lullaby still lingering in the air, fading gently into the quiet, and know that tonight we will follow those echoes to their final resting place. Let your mind soften, your eyelids grow heavy, and your thoughts flow slowly like the gentle currents of a hidden stream in the heart of Ooo. After Marceline's song drifts outward, carried on winds that move without urgency, the music begins to mingle with the lingering harmonics of all that has ever existed in Ooo. The melodies of kingdoms, forests, mountains, rivers, wastes, and stars converge, forming an invisible tapestry that stretches across the landscape of both the present and the distant past. The echoes carry fragments of laughter, whispers of longing, and threads of hope, all entwined within vibrations, too subtle for ordinary ears, but deeply felt by those who know how to listen. The song transforms into something beyond performance. It becomes resonance itself, a quiet pulse that connects every corner of the world. The world seems to hold its breath. Time softens, bending in the presence of this reverberation. Seconds stretch like threads of light, moments layering atop one another to form gentle, continuous waves. Mountains, forests, rivers, and ruins vibrate with the memory of sound, each contributing a subtle frequency that blends seamlessly into the whole. It is as if the Song of Ooo is no longer a collection of notes or chords, but a living force, threading through the very molecules of reality. Even the wastes, silent and barren, seem to hum softly in response, a quiet acknowledgement that every echo, however faint, finds its place. Stars participate in their own way. Their light, already refracted through vast expanses of space, carries faint harmonic patterns that intertwine with the melodies drifting upward. Constellations shimmer with subtle variations, tracing the invisible arcs of the final notes, and comets trace delicate paths, leaving behind filaments of energy that quiver in time with the music. The quiet between stars itself seems to fold gently, as if the universe is leaning closer to hear, embracing each vibration with patient attention. Even the void carries sound here, not as emptiness, but as receptive presence, cradling the echoes of Ooo like a parent rocking a child to sleep. Creatures throughout Ooo, whether awake or dreaming, feel the gentle touch of this final reverberation. A fox in the wastes tilts its head, sensing something both familiar and impossibly distant. A rabbit in the Candy Kingdom pauses mid-hop, ears twitching, caught in a thread of sound that speaks not with words but with feeling. Even trees, stones, and forgotten structures respond, vibrating imperceptibly as if recognizing the significance of what has passed through them. The music moves through the world like invisible water, unhurried, patient, and wholly attentive to every being it touches. The bard of the wastes, in his solitude, feels the faint pulse of this cosmic convergence. His own songs, once solitary and wandering, now resonate softly with the harmonics of the last lullaby and the lingering melodies of Oo's kingdoms. Though he is far removed, the invisible threads connect him to Marceline's voice and the echoes of the lands, reminding him that even solitude does not equate to absence. He senses the music as a river that flows through all things, uniting the living and the departed, the seen and the unseen, into one continuous current. The quiet between notes becomes almost as significant as the notes themselves. In these pauses, the world inhales. Space itself seems to stretch, allowing each vibration to settle fully before the next wave of sound arrives. This is the true power of the final reverberation. It teaches the listener how to feel sound without striving to interpret it. It allows memory, emotion, and existence to coexist in a gentle, unhurried balance. Here, endings are not abrupt. They unfold like petals, revealing layers of beauty and resonance that were always present, but unnoticed. Even the smallest gestures carry weight. A droplet of water in a hidden cave reflects the hum of the final chords. A fluttering leaf catches a fragment of melody and sways in time with the universal pulse. A stone in the wastes, long silent and unremarkable, vibrates imperceptibly with the rhythm of existence. Every detail of Ooo participates in the music, even if unnoticed, each contributing to a harmonic that is larger than any single voice, larger than any kingdom, and larger than the sum of all creatures within the land. And yet the final reverberation is not merely about scale. It is also intimate, deeply personal. For every creature who feels the pulse, there is a sense of acknowledgement, a quiet reassurance that they have mattered, that their presence, however fleeting, contributes to the ongoing song. It is both universal and individual, cosmic and personal. A melody that folds across dimensions while cradling the listener's heart. It is a gentle affirmation that existence itself is meaningful, that memory persists, and that music, the true song of Ooo, is eternal. As the notes stretch further and further, dissolving into subtler waves of harmonic resonance, it becomes clear that the final reverberation is not the end of music, but a transformation. Each echo, each vibration, each thread of melody will continue to influence the lands, the skies, and the quiet expanses between stars. It becomes a living memory, an invisible pulse threading through time and space, connecting past, present, and future. Even after the last human or creature has fallen silent, the song endures, folded into the essence of the world itself. And so the final reverberation carries Oo's story forward. It is patient, infinite, and tender. Every note, every echo, every subtle vibration intertwines with the memories of kingdoms, the whispers of wastes, the light of stars, and the quiet that exists between them all. It is the culmination of every melody sung, every lullaby whispered, and every vibration carried through the land. The last song of Ooo does not end. It transforms, becoming a soft, eternal pulse that drifts endlessly, reminding all who listen that the world, in its quietest moments, continues to sing. As the final reverberation unfolds, it seems to move in multiple layers at once, folding past, present, and future into a single, unbroken continuum of sound. It is no longer tied to a single voice, a single kingdom, or even a single point in space. Instead, it flows like a gentle river through the very fabric of Ooo, reaching into forests, mountains, rivers, ruins, and the unseen wastes, carrying with it the accumulated memories of countless lives, melodies, and moments. Each note merges with the next, not in haste, but in the kind of patience that only eternity can teach. The stars, silent witnesses to Oo's unfolding history, seem to pulse in rhythm with the final reverberation. Light bends subtly, tracing arcs that mirror the harmonics of the song, creating patterns that are almost visible to those who know how to see with more than their eyes. Even the smallest cosmic particles hum in response, vibrating gently, as if the universe itself recognizes the significance of this final convergence. Space and melody intertwine, and it becomes impossible to discern where one ends and the other begins. In the kingdoms below, creatures feel the faintest touch of the song. A butterfly flutters its wings, the motion subtly in time with the harmonics. Leaves stir gently in a forest glade, catching the vibration in their veins. The sound is both everywhere and nowhere, as though the world itself has become an instrument, tuned to the subtle pulse of Oo's memory. The wastes, long thought empty, resonate faintly, cradling remnants of life that have long since vanished. Even the ruins of old kingdoms seem to hold a soft echo, a memory preserved in stone, waiting for the final song to acknowledge it. Marceline's influence lingers in this final pulse. Her voice, strummed into the fabric of Ooo, is carried not only in memory, but in vibration. Each chord, each hum, each gentle pause is felt as much as it is heard. The echo is tender and patient, teaching those who encounter it that music is more than sound. It is a conduit for memory, a vessel for connection, and a gentle guide for hearts that are open enough to receive it. Those who listen, whether awake or dreaming, find themselves cradled in the resonance of her care, soothed by the acknowledgement of the world's history and the quiet continuity of life. Even the bard of the wastes, wandering through empty plains, senses this final pulse threading through his own music. His solitary notes, once isolated and mournful, now join the larger fabric of sound, merging with the harmonics of Marceline's voice and the lingering melodies of the kingdoms. Together, though separated by distance, they create a resonance that carries both recognition and comfort. It is a quiet communion, a shared understanding that every creature, every voice, every fragment of life contributes to the enduring song of Ooo. The final reverberation also teaches stillness. Between the notes, in the gentle pauses, the world exhales. The winds slow, the rivers soften, and the lands themselves seem to breathe along with the melody. In these moments, it becomes clear that endings are not abrupt or harsh. They are transitions, gentle foldings of one state into another. The song teaches the listener patience, offering a quiet understanding that life, memory, and music are never lost, only transformed and carried forward in ways both subtle and profound. Time itself seems to bend around the music. Seconds stretch and fold, layering harmonics atop one another like delicate filigree. Every echo, every trace of melody, every vibration carries forward not only the story of what was, but the promise of what may yet be remembered. The final reverberation is not a conclusion in the traditional sense. It is the seed of continuity, an invisible thread linking all that has existed with all that will exist. In its soft, patient persistence, it ensures that Oo's essence, though imperceptible at times, will always endure. And so the final reverberation flows outward, gentle, unhurried, and infinite. It carries the last traces of voices, laughter, and music, blending them with the whispers of wind, the pulse of rivers, and the subtle hum of stars. It is the ultimate testament to the endurance of memory and the quiet resilience of life. In this way, Ooo does not truly end. It transforms, becoming a melody that drifts endlessly through time and space, a gentle, eternal pulse that reminds all who encounter it that music, memory, and connection endure forever. As the final reverberation stretches onward, it begins to settle into a rhythm that feels both ancient and timeless. Each vibration, no matter how faint, carries layers of meaning, as if the world itself is breathing in unison with the song. The echoes of kingdoms long fallen mingle with the laughter of creatures long gone, forming harmonics that are invisible to the eye yet tangible to the heart. Even the wastes, which once seemed empty and lifeless, carry within them faint traces of melody, subtle but persistent, a quiet reminder that nothing truly disappears. The sky over Ooo seems to respond. Clouds drift slowly, parting and folding as if to make room for the final notes, while the stars shimmer faintly in approval, their light bending gently in subtle arcs to match the lingering harmonics. Comets trace paths that are unhurried, moving not with haste but in careful alignment with the melody, leaving trails that carry the song to unseen corners of the universe. Even the quiet between stars seems to fold inwards, as if the cosmos itself is leaning closer, absorbing the music, and reflecting it in a way that ensures nothing is lost, only transformed. Marceline's influence lingers like a gentle current, threading through every vibration. Her voice, her bass, her carefully chosen pauses all become part of the song's enduring fabric. Each note she sang carries memory and emotion, touching everything in its path. Rivers hum with subtle resonance, forests quiver in gentle response, and the smallest creatures, from insects to birds, pause to sense the vibrations. The melody cradles Ooo itself, teaching that music is more than sound. It is continuity, connection, and the quiet affirmation that existence matters even in its softest, most fleeting moments. The bard of the wastes, somewhere beyond the horizon, feels the pull of this reverberation in the spaces between his own notes. His solitary music, born of long nights and barren lands, merges subtly with Marceline's lullaby and the harmonics of the kingdoms. Though he is far removed, the melodies intersect in the quiet, creating harmonics that ripple through the land, the wastes, and the cosmos. In this invisible meeting of voices, there is understanding, patience, and recognition, a gentle acknowledgement that even in solitude, connection persists. Even the smallest details of Ooo participate in the final song. A leaf trembles slightly as the vibrations pass through it. A stone hums faintly in time. A single droplet of water resonates softly in a hidden pool. The land itself becomes a living instrument, attuned to the gentle pulse of the final reverberation. Nothing is too small to matter, and nothing is so large as to dominate. Each element contributes to the harmony, however subtle, ensuring that the song is not a performance for attention, but a presence that exists to cradle and preserve the memory of all that has been. The final reverberation is patient, teaching the value of stillness. Between the chords, between the echoes, and between the spaces of silence, the world exhales. Winds soften, rivers slow their flow, and even the mountains seem to settle into the gentle rhythm of the melody. In these pauses, the listener perceives that endings are not abrupt, but gentle transitions. They are the folding of one state into another, a quiet affirmation that the world, its creatures, and its memory continue to exist in harmony, even as individual notes fade into the eternal weave of sound. Time itself becomes fluid, stretching and layering as harmonics ripple through reality. Moments from the past touch those of the present, intertwining with the promises of the future. Every echo, every vibration, every subtle trace of melody carries with it fragments of memory and experience. The final reverberation is not a conclusion, but a transformation, an ongoing pulse that threads together the essence of Ooo, the kingdoms, the waste, the stars, and the quiet between them all. It is both the end and the continuation, a soft, enduring heartbeat that persists beyond perception. As the melody travels further, it becomes less about sound and more about resonance. It moves through hearts, minds, and spirits, touching everything with quiet assurance. Listeners, awake or dreaming, feel its presence as a gentle warmth, a subtle guidance, a reminder that all that has existed matters. It teaches patience, empathy, and the beauty of continuity, showing that even as kingdoms fall silent and creatures drift into memory, their contributions to the song of Ooo endure. And so the final reverberation continues its journey, patient, gentle, and eternal. It carries the weight of all melodies sung, all voices heard, all memories lived, and all dreams dreamt. It cradles Ooo in its harmonic embrace, ensuring that nothing is lost, only transformed into a living, breathing continuity of music and memory. In this gentle, unhurried pulse, Oo's story persists infinitely patient, endlessly resonant, and forever cradled by the quiet, tender embrace of the cosmos. The final reverberation flows on, patient and unhurried, carrying the weight of every melody that has ever graced Ooo. It moves like a soft tide, brushing over kingdoms and wastes alike, caressing the ruins of forgotten halls, the quiet forests, and the open plains. Every note, every echo, every subtle harmonic threads through the landscape, touching creatures both living and long gone. The soft vibration hums beneath the stones, through the rivers, across the mountains, and into the skies, as though the world itself has become one vast, delicate instrument. Marceline's presence is still felt, though her form drifts quietly through the unseen layers of reality. Her voice, her bass, and her pauses are now absorbed into the very fabric of Ooo, becoming resonance rather than sound, memory rather than performance. Each note she sang has left an imprint, a subtle vibration that will continue to flow through the kingdoms, the wastes, and the quiet spaces between the stars for as long as the cosmos itself endures. In this final pulse, every fragment of history, joy, sorrow, and quiet reflection is preserved. It is not a song lost to time, but a song that time carries, folding gently into the endless tapestry of existence. The lands themselves respond to the gentle pulse. Trees sway as though breathing in harmony, their branches trembling softly with the lingering vibrations. Rivers ripple in quiet acknowledgement, reflecting both moonlight and starlight that bend subtly in time with the harmonics. Stones hum faintly as they settle into place, carrying the memory of song to their weight and the texture. Even the wastes, often thought desolate and empty, vibrate gently, cradling remnants of life, laughter, and song that have long since vanished from the conscious world. In these quiet interactions, Ooo itself becomes alive in the most profound and subtle way. The stars, distant and ancient, respond in their own cosmic language. Their light refracts in delicate, almost imperceptible arcs, tracing patterns that mirror the vibrations flowing through Ooo. Comets glide through space along gentle trajectories, their tails carrying fragments of melody into corners of the universe that no living creature will ever see. Even the quiet between stars folds in slightly, as if leaning closer to witness the persistence of this final song. The universe, patient and eternal, receives the reverberation as both acknowledgement and embrace. The bard of the wastes, though far removed, senses the quiet convergence of music. His own solitary notes, born of the ruins and silence he walks through, merge in subtle harmony with the lingering chords of Marceline's Lullaby and the accumulated melodies of the kingdoms. Distance does not diminish the connection. Rather, it underscores the universality of the song. Their harmonics converse in silence, blending memory and resonance, ensuring that every fragment of Oo's history is carried forward with dignity and care. Creatures throughout Ooo, large and small, awake and asleep, feel the gentle touch of this final vibration. A rabbit nestled in the forest hears it as a soothing pulse in its chest. A bird in the ice kingdom catches the faint undertone in the whispering wind. Tiny insects respond to the subtlest vibrations, and even the earth beneath the waste seems to hum in quiet resonance. The final reverberation carries reassurance, gently teaching that life, memory, and connection persist, even when nothing appears to move. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the reverberation begins to settle. It does not end abruptly, for it has never been hurried. Instead, it folds inward like a soft sigh, leaving behind a gentle hum that lingers in the very essence of Ooo. The kingdoms, the wastes, the forests, the mountains, and the rivers hold on to it in subtle ways, each place preserving the song in the textures of existence itself. Stars continued to shimmer faintly, carrying the final echoes into the infinite reaches of space, ensuring that the last song of Ooo continues to drift, unseen but ever present. In this quiet, expansive settling, there is a sense of completeness. Every note has been acknowledged, every echo has found its place, and every fragment of memory has been cradled into continuity. The world breathes with the final pulse, a soft, infinite heartbeat that carries within it the entirety of Oo's story. It is a reminder that music, memory, and life are intertwined, patient, and enduring. Even when silence falls, the essence of song persists, transformed into something eternal, gentle, and profound. And so, as the last song of Ooo drifts softly into the quiet of the universe, it leaves behind an enduring truth, that life, memory, and music are never truly lost. They continue in echoes, in harmonics, in the subtle vibration of the world itself. The kingdoms, the wastes, the stars, and even the quiet spaces between all hold the memory of every note, every whisper, and every lullaby ever sung. The song persists, patient, gentle, and infinite, cradling the heart of Ooo across time and space. Good night.